Good evening and welcome to episode 60 of the Loaded Dice podcast. My name is Andrew, and here with me tonight I have a full panel of Robert.
Yeah, I'm back once again.
And Doug.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And people in between.
Nice. Nice. And with that, we've been removed from iTunes. Yeah, welcome to episode 60. Although 60 is not like that much of a milestone, I feel like it's a milestone.
I don't know. We've reached like solid double digit, like a solid number in double digit once again.
Yeah. Like I feel like it's just solid. It's dependable. Yeah. I feel like hopefully we've done quite a bit over the last few months to try and get back. We are recording on the every fortnight, even if it is Doug and myself doing our late night psychic hotline chat show.
That was fun. I enjoyed that.
It was good, actually. Quite a few people really liked it. Yeah.
Excellent.
So that was well, when I say that, like, I don't know, maybe my mum liked it. I'm just assuming. I think she still listens. I don't know. Look, I actually wanted to start off tonight's show with something that's not on the show notes because that's what we do, right?
Uh-oh.
It's just tangents straight away.
Yeah, 2 hours later.
Wait, this is improvisation? No, we can't have this.
All right.
You have a script for me?
Okay, so a couple of hours ago, on the way home, and typical Sydney traffic, it took me like 2 hours and 20 minutes to get from my office back to home, which is pretty bad. Like, that's bad by my standards, right?
But this is Sydney, so fuck you.
Yeah. This is Sydney. Like, the M5 didn't just have like one accident on it; it had 2 accidents on it, which was fantastic. Anyway, I was listening to one of the latest episodes from the Honest Wargamer podcast. And if anybody doesn't listen to the Honest Gamer War podcast, definitely go and have a listen to it. It's Rob of Games Workshop. What was it? Games Workshop Live or Warhammer TV Live or whatever it was. So he was the guy that hopped in the bin with the Magnus model, I think. Does that sound right? Remember when they the first ever GW Prime hint at, oh my god, here's Magnus. He was the guy doing that video.
Okay. Yep.
Anyway,
maybe
funny guy, hilarious podcast. It is quite a competitive angle on Age of Sigmar and 40k. So if you're not into competitive stuff, it's not probably the podcast for you. But anyway, he was having this conversation about a tournament he went to the other day. And basically at this tournament, he was running a Harlequin army against a Deathwatch player. And at one point, he moved most of his army, so 2 very large units of jet bikes, close to the Deathwatch players. He had like a Sikaran battle tank.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And so he moved the guys in, and Deathwatch have a stratagem when they fight Elder, that if the Elder move within 12 inches of a unit, of like a Deathwatch unit in their movement phase, and they also have the fly keyword. So if it's like a grav tank or jet bikes, which these were,
you can
the
shoot.
Deathwatch guys can play the stratagem and can fire as if they're in the shooting phase. Add to that, the Sikaran ignores any modifiers to hit against things that have the fly keyword, and basically the guy had 300. I think he said it was like 380 points of jet bikes wiped out in his own movement phase, and it doesn't restrict you from shooting in your shooting phase either, because obviously it's happening in the opposite player's turn. So his other unit of jet bikes then got minced in the next turn. And like it was interesting. There was a discussion about how far do you help your opponents? And he came to the conclusion that it was his own fault for not knowing every stratagem in 40k 8th edition, right? But as he also said, is you would never be able to have that sort of mastery of the game. Like, it would be nearly impossible to know that. So it's really a case of you have to let it happen to you once, unknowingly, get your ass kicked, and then you're never going to forget it again. Especially when it's a very niche stratagem where it's like, it's Deathwatch only used against Elder and only used against flying Elder, if that makes sense.
And only when they do move a certain distance into this range and all the
exactly.
rest of it. So you're waiting for a bunch of different rules and triggers to occur before you can actually do that strategy.
Yeah, so it's pretty niche. And it was apparently it's his first tournament with the Harlequins or something like that, he's saying. But what it raised for me, and this is sort of looking back on a few games of Kill Team and 40k and Age of Sigmar and whatnot that I've played recently, especially with you, Doug.
Mm-hmm.
In regards to, and I know like we don't play competitively when we play. Like we play to win.
You don't play competitively.
No, I don't read rules, right?
Yeah.
That's the charm of me. I feel like that's what I bring to this table.
Yep.
But how far do you help your opponents before it becomes a case of if he's not going to read his rule book, that's on him? And then how much of doing things like a gotcha moment where it's like, haha, you've moved in here, I'm going to play the stratagem that you didn't know I could play and fuck you up sort of thing. And then I guess it also comes along and works into the fact of like, there is nothing in the rules that says you have to let your opponent take back things that they do.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's understandable. There's nothing in the rule book that says, if your opponent misses
no mulligans rule.
Yeah, you don't have to let them go back and do like the psychic phase again. Or if they miss shooting with somebody, you don't have to let them go back and do it. At the same time, there's no rule that says, like in chess, if you take your hand off the piece, you're done with it. It's kind of like if the phase ends, well, that's the end of that phase and it's all done.
Yep.
Now, I was sort of wondering what you guys and what your thoughts were, because obviously, Doug, you've been playing a few games with different people like Adrian and Damo that is like tournament prep for those guys.
Yeah.
And for yourself, I guess. And so what are your thoughts on like in a competitive point of view? And Rob, you're probably quite good in that space as well because of the way you play on lists that you do. And then also, what are your ideas on that as far as like friendly games? So like, Doug, when you and I playing like Kill Team and all this sort of stuff or whatever, and one of us forgets something, it's like, oh, can I just issue an order I would have issued, or can I do this or whatever? And, we're always happy to say yes.
Yeah.
But, like, where does that stop? What should you like? And obviously when the people you're playing with, I don't think this is even an issue, but I'm more talking like, can we use our experiences and our knowledge to help out people that are maybe paying, pickup games at GW or Good Games or at a tournament or at one of our events, etc. Like, what do you guys think?
Yeah. Rob, do you want to go first or?
Yeah, you go first, man, and I'll talk after you.
So I feel like the thing that I'm kind of settling on as I help people prep for tourneys and as I help people as I play games with people is that core rules are things that I'm happy to help people with. So in terms of, hey, that unit can run and charge, right? Or, hey, don't forget, you can still charge with that unit, even though you don't think you can make the charge. It's probably worth declaring it anyway. Those sorts of things. So things that are kind of common to both armies. But I think helping people play their stratagems is probably where I draw the line. So I'm not sure that I'd say, hey, don't forget you have this stratagem that you can use this, like in this situation. But
does that then extend to you? Like, take the example that I explained from the Honest Wargamer, right? So if you were the Deathwatch player,
yep,
do you kind of feel like you would maybe say, oh, don't forget, if you come close to me with your jet bikes, I can stop your movement phase and shoot you out of the fucking sky? Because funnily enough, like I was thinking about myself here, and I was like, I probably would say something about that, but I'm a fucking dumbass. Right?
Correct. Confirmed.
And two, I honestly don't think that most people would. And I wouldn't have a problem if somebody didn't tell me. I just feel like I'm occasionally overly helpful on the tabletop, and I know I've fucked myself in the past by saying something to somebody about, oh, don't forget, I can do this, or this guy's got this and can do that. And then somebody's gone, oh, shit, actually, yeah, no, you're right. And then they haven't done that. And I'm like, oh, fuck, like I could have wiped that squad off the table if he hadn't, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so like,
yeah. So this is one of those things that I feel like my time playing War Machine and Hordes has helped me with. Not to bring up, the most competitive of competitive games, but there was a guy I used to play all the time who was probably really only casually competitive, right? Like he was fun to play against, knew his army really well or pretty well. but didn't know everybody else's army really well. And so that was kind of what made him a casual competitive guy rather than a full tilt, meta kind of aligned player, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And his thing was he had a little black book. And every time you dicked him over with something or he forgot to do something, he'd always say, no, don't let me take it back. I'll write it down,
And
where the consequences of it. And next time I won't do that. And I feel like you said, right, in a friendly or in a narrative thing, like, who cares? Sure, take back your entire movement phase for all I care, right? Like, I don't care. Mulligan the entire turn. But if you're either preparing for a tournament or if you're in a tournament, I think there's a lot to be said for helping people play the core game, but not necessarily helping them play their army against your army.
Yeah, and unless I guess that's exactly specifically what they want from you as tournament prep.
Well,
which would be different to playing in the tournament itself.
Exactly right. For tournament prep, I'm quite happy to say, hey, don't forget. So in the example, right, if it's Harlequins versus Deathwatch in a tournament prep game, and the bikes move into it within 12 inches of the Siki, I'd be like, hey, don't forget, that's really going to hurt.
Yeah.
But in the actual tournament, I'd be quite happy to say, okay, cool, you've moved, you're done moving those jet bikes. Great, here's this stratagem. Take them off the table.
Yep.
Like, that's fine as far as I'm concerned. I think there's no reason necessarily to tell people what the aces up my sleeve are until I've played them.
No, that's very true. Like, I'll, like, from where I'm standing, like, I think the biggest 2 points you look at here is, are you playing a tournament or are you just playing a friendly, a narrative, or a prep game? Like, if you're playing like the narrative or the friendly game, yeah, you probably are going to say to someone, hey, look, I'll tell you now, that's probably a bad idea because I can do this to you. Especially like, if you are prepping for a tournament, like, you're trying to learn the mechanics of not only your army, which, obviously this guy, he's the first time he's taken his Harlequin army there. Like, you need to be aware of the limitations and what things different factions have to play against your army so you can, more optimizedly play your list so you understand what the strengths and weaknesses of every list you'll come up against. Like, I remember, previously when I would play in tournaments, like, I would, go through and look at some of the books that were out at the time to see what other armies could put up against me. And yes, I didn't have an encyclopedic knowledge where I would say, oh no, this unit's worth, 32 points and this, that, and the other. But I would have a rough idea of how each army would play and what are the big sort of things I'm going to look out for in this particular, army list. Like 8th edition, like, yes, I don't know how many books are currently out now. So it's a bit harder now when there was, 10 books and all you had to do was skim through them very quickly. You didn't have things like stratagems, but you always would, acutely aware of, the situation and what was out there and what you could be facing in each particular meta. And something like you were talking about, though, too, like, writing down a little book, when something happens to you and to making sure it doesn't happen again. Like, more than once when I've been playing a game, I've literally, I'll forget something, it'll move into the next phase and I'll turn around and go, oh shit, I forgot to, do this or do that. And someone's like, no, you want to go back and do it? It's like, no, you know what? I fucked up. That's my fault. If I go back and do it, I'll just keep making the same mistake and keep forgetting it. But if I penalize myself and don't use it, I'll remember next time because I actually want to do what that is.
Yes, correct.
Yep. And like, and something you were saying too before, like, it's a tournament. Like a tournament isn't there to, you're playing lists which are designed to beat you. Like, it's not designed for narrative play. It's not designed for friendly play. You're going to run into some of the roughest lists you probably will ever run into, and you need to be able to beat those in a straightforward game. And your opponent isn't going to turn around and go, hey, if you move here, I've got this card in my hand, because it's like playing poker and tipping your hand to your opponents at the table. Like, you're just giving away all your secrets at that point. Like, if you're playing a tournament and your opponent makes a mistake, you'll pounce on it 100%. You won't give them any warning what's about to, the ass pain is about to come on the table at you.
So
yeah, sorry, go.
Sorry, I was just going to say, in regards to the poker metaphor, and look, I completely agree with what you're saying, and I think it is just sort of a distinction on like what sort of game are you playing, and if you know that. But I guess the thing with poker is, like, yes, you know what cards are in the deck, right?
Yep.
And all that sort of stuff. But there is no way to know what the person's holding in their hands unless they show you. Whereas it is conceivable that you could know every stratagem that the other guy has in his codex.
Yep.
So, like, and then I guess the only thing for me is, you know, and even this is even in a tournament, right? Is most tournaments these days, from what I've seen, still run like a sportsmanship score.
Yeah.
And by still run, I mean like more of them are picking it up than probably had it back, you know, a million years ago. I could very conceivably see that if you were the Deathwatch player and you did that to somebody, right? And I'm not saying he's in the wrong at all. I don't think he is. I don't think he did anything bad at all. I wouldn't have a problem if somebody did it to me, but I could totally see that being like a feel bad for somebody, and then they tank somebody's sportsmanship score over it. Even though like it's completely okay, and as you say, you know, but it is kind of getting to the end, like that side of like the cutthroat side of it. If that kind of makes sense. Do you think that is it something that would be worth having a conversation about, or trying to somehow put into like a tournament player pack about, you know, have a bit of a discussion about it? Because like most tournaments these days will actually have in the players pack that, you know, if round 1 starts at 10 a.m., at 10:05 you exchange army lists at the table for 5 minutes. Like I've seen that in players packs, right? Now, the idea in Warhammer is that, well, in 40k is that like if somebody asks you what's in that rhino, you have to tell them what's in the rhino. Like you're supposed to explain this is what's in the rhino. And even though, you know, WYSIWYG's kind of gone by the wayside in a lot of places just because of certain items and builds and everything else, if somebody says to you, what's that what's that Primaris captain got on him, you're supposed to tell them, right?
No, of course.
So then, like, if somebody said to you, hey, explain to me your stratagems, is there a problem with you doing that? Like, I know that none of us here would refuse that sort of request, but I'm like, is that now something else that needs to be added into like the army list and the modeling and everything? It's like, hey, what are your stratagems? Or because they're generic and available to anybody that buys the book, it's really on the opponent to do it?
I think.
You know what I mean?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, you go, Rob.
Okay, I think it is a bit of A and B. You know, like you said, you go to the table, you shake your opponent's hand, you go, hey, blah, 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 I'm playing this army, so you exchange army lists. Like, you've probably got your army book there with you because you're not playing a game without your army book. You're not relying on Battlescribe or something like that, because if some kind of dispute comes up and you need to look something up, you don't want to be wandering around the tournament hall for 20 minutes trying to find someone who's hopefully got the same book as you. Yeah. Because if you're running Khorne Demons, you're the only guy running Khorne Demons, you're kind of fucked at that point. But at the same time, again, army books are freely available. You know, you can go and buy them. You know, let's be honest, like everyone knows where to go on the internet and go and find them in most cases. So you should be able to find that information and, you know, absorb it and understand it. And like what you said, like if you're not too sure about like what stratagems your opponent can have, just go and flick through the army book and you can run through them and go, yep, okay, no one's okay. I need to watch out for that one if that happens. And you'll, you know, when you read the stratagems, you'll understand the rules and the triggers that are going to activate that stratagem. So if I'm playing that Deathwatch player and I've got those Harlequin jet bikes and I even have an inkling or an idea that card or that stratagem exists in, you know, possibly in his hand, I will deliberately take steps not to activate the rule triggers behind it.
Yep, fair enough.
Yep.
Yeah.
And sorry, something like else you were talking before, Andrew, like, you know, metaphor about poker, like kind of referring to poker again, you can in some ways card count and understand what possibly could be in his hand. Because if he's played certain cards and, you know that, there is a, let's for argument's sake, a 1 in 8 chance that he could be holding that card in his hand.
Yeah. So you can play, like, and this is getting off topic into poker, and to be honest, I haven't watched professional poker for a few years.
No, I haven't watched poker tour at 2 o'clock in the morning for a while.
Yeah, that and competitive paintball kind of went by the wayside. But there's actually, I don't know if there are rules or laws in poker, I can't remember, but you actually can't count. You're not allowed to card count.
Oh no, I think so correct me if someone knows this better than me. I think it's legal, but it's heavily frowned upon. Like if you get caught card counting, you go out into the side alley and they kick the shit out of you.
Yeah, like I think it's kind of like a sense of, obviously you play the percentages. It's how a good poker player plays, but you're not allowed to do anything that's like, I think card counting takes it a step further and stuff. But anyway,
whatever.
Okay, cool. No, look, I just thought it was an interesting discussion, and it had never really crossed my mind. But when I was listening to The Honest Wargamer, I was sitting there going, I would totally be the idiot that would tell somebody about that stratagem.
Yeah. So Like, I don't necessarily want to keep bringing up War Machine and Hordes, but it's probably kind of the competitive scene for War Machine and Hordes, I think, is kind of where the Games Workshop competitive scene wants to be.
Yep.
In terms of being, finishing games on time, armies being reasonably well balanced against each other in a rock, paper, scissors kind of way.
Yeah. Very structured and like as watertight as possible, right?
Yeah. And so one of the things that I'd always do at tournaments for War Machine and Hordes was, can I see your Warcaster's spell card?
Mm-hmm.
So can I see the spells that are available to you that I know are going to dick me over? And normally, what is the maximum threat range? Sorry, the maximum potential threat range of your fastest unit?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it was never how fast can Malik Khan go? It was always how fast could he conceivably go when he's buffed?
Yep.
Yeah.
And still hit me. And the answer was always, 3 foot and you're fucked. Doesn't matter where you go. But that's Malik Khan. Shout out to all of those Scorn players out there who fondly remember that version of Malik Khan. But so I feel like at least partially the onus is on the person themselves to ask the right questions to get the answers. I don't think you should ever withhold information from an opponent. So if an opponent asks a good question, answer it truthfully and transparently.
Yeah.
So for example, right, the reason I'd always ask what is the maximum potential threat range of your character was I got sick of asking, hey, what's the speed on that guy? And being told, and then the next turn being completely fucked over by them because they doubled it.
Yeah, they double it and they just come flying up the board and your shit is getting pushed in.
Yep. So, so those sorts of things. Like, so do you have any relics that are doing a thing for you? Or do you have any stratagems that are particularly good against my faction? Or stuff like that.
Yep.
I feel like they're good questions to ask, or even just, can I see your stratagems? The problem, I think, with can I see your stratagems is that for a book like Knights, for example, that have 4 pages of stratagems, you're not going to get through those in 5 minutes in any sort of conceivably beneficial way. It's really more going to be, what stratagems work well against me? What stratagems do you have that work well against you? Oh, sorry, for you. You know what I mean? So asking those kinds of questions.
Mm-hmm.
And, at that stage, I'd probably quite happily offer things like, so I have a stratagem that lets me shoot down Eldar flyers if they move within 12 inches of me. Or, I have this stratagem that lets me resurrect a knight when you kill it. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
But if they don't ask, I'm not necessarily going to just volunteer it.
Yeah, go out of my way to tell them about it. No.
Yeah. And then if they didn't ask, then they can write it in their little black book. And I might, after the game, say, hey, next time, how about, have you thought about asking your opponent what stratagems they have that are going to be effective?
Yeah, well, that's like the after battle report where you win the game, you lose your game, you walk over, you shake your opponent's hand, and then you stand there and you talk about the game and you talk about what you did wrong, what you did right, and more than 10%, 90% of the time, you ask someone like, hey, what do you think I could have done better? And they will give you an honest answer on it. Be like, look, I think you could have done this, or you had a really good setup here and you just did something, you just didn't look at the target and you just went off on a tangent or something like that. And you're like, no. And even though you lose a game, you still get better at it because you play someone who is in theory better than you. Maybe they won based on cheese or something like that, and whatever. But you play a game and you lose, you still get better because you learn more about your list, you learn more about what your opponents can bring. And if again, like your example at the beginning, Andrew, like this is the very first time you've taken Harlequins to an event. You're probably not going to come out on top. You're probably not going to do too well because, again, you're still learning the army. It's the very first time you've taken it. But after the second or third time, you understand the dynamics of the army. You understand how to use that army effectively, and you will start doing better and, having better games out of it.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. And so I feel like getting sprung at a tournament is fine. Getting sprung in a narrative setting is, I think, a bit rough.
Oh, yeah, it's a bit rough.
That's massive feel-badsies, and I'd always volunteer information, I think, at a narrative kind of level.
Yep.
But for a tournament, I don't feel any real compulsion to volunteer. Here's how my army works.
Yep.
Please work around it for the rest of the game and, dick me over.
Like I still remember playing, I forget who I was playing, but he moved his Spartan full of his, Death Star up the table. They jumped down. We're in a perfect position for assault. And he's like, I'm going to assault you now. I'm like, you realize that because I forget, like he infiltrated or scouted the Spartan or whatever he
Yeah,
did.
yeah, you couldn't charge it or whatever. Yeah,
and I'm like, and he's, you know, his 1,200 points of his army is literally standing in front of my giant gun line. And he's like we've watched him go white. I'm like, do you want to like move it all back? And he's like, can I do that? I'm like, yeah, just do it, because like I expected you didn't understand it. And you just moved it all back and sorted it all out.
Yep.
Awesome. All right. Well, no, I appreciate the conversation on that one. It's good to get a bit more. So I will continue to just tell people in narrative games that they're going to do good things for me, and then they won't do them, and I'll continue to get fucked over.
Yeah,
good.
Pretty much.
Awesome.
Cool. Sounds good.
Well, with that case, we'll start the intro to the show.
All right. 20 minutes in, we're now back on topic.
That's right.
Yes. Okay. Doug, I think most of this intro is yours, actually, so you're more than welcome to take it away.
Yeah, it looks like it. Guys, I've really been enjoying Kill Team. I've been playing quite a few games, and I love it. I love it so much. It may be because I'm like winning most of those games. In fact, have I lost a game of Kill Team yet? I don't think I have.
Well, you see,
but I'm mostly playing you, so
yeah. Well, when you continue to give me gimped fucking lists, and then you take really good lists that you've like, you know, built to fight your gimped lists, you know, I'm just
look. Next time I'll give you 2 frag cannons, and we'll see how you go.
No, look, I definitely don't want to accuse you of that. It's to some extent, it's my own laziness that means I end up with other people's Kill Team lists. No, I totally agree with you. I think it's a fantastic game. And not only for the fact that you can get a couple of games out fairly quickly. Although I think, and you and I were having this conversation the other night, Doug, it's not scratching my 40K game itch.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
I thought it might have kind of kept me a bit happier, but it's actually just added itself as a game, not as an alternative to it. Which is fine. That's not an issue either. Yeah. But no, I agree.
And so I've been enjoying that. That's been great. And I actually really love the games we played with walls. So like the enclosed spaces, kind of space hulky, zone mortality kind of board.
It does definitely it does change the dynamics.
Yeah.
Just because like obviously the big thing that sort of I was contending with is that you can charge around corners without being able to see the target if you charge.
Yep.
But obviously, the moment you do that, like the moment you declare the charge, you're out of line of sight. I can't overwatch you.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't, you know, I obviously lose that. So I'm just falling back 3 inches or whatever it is on it, which I think sort of starts to tip the scales a little bit in favor of like, you know, more combat-y troops and everything else. But, you know, like that's just, I guess, that's the environment and the way Kill Team is supposed to be played is you've got your roster, you find out what you're playing, and then you can build your Kill Team.
Yeah. And, like, I wonder if, because I was reflecting on this when, was it the independent characters were talking about it? They were talking about the fact that the mistake a lot of people make with Kill Team, and I feel like I'm 100% guilty of this, is putting too much terrain on the table.
Okay, they go like full battlefield sort of terrain level.
Well,
okay.
So when you get the Kill Team kill zones, right? It's like the 22 by 30 block or the board with like a small building ruin set on it.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, when I play, I throw like a complex in the middle of it, and then like crates everywhere and like watchtowers and shit.
Oh, so the battlefield's completely stacked.
Yeah, and so there's no like open spaces that you have to try and cross. There's always cover to hop to.
Yep.
Which means that shooting armies have problems because you're never really caught out.
Yeah, you're never out in the open, so they actually have to, you know, have a hard time sort of shooting you out of cover or wherever you are.
Yeah,
that's exactly right. Yeah.
And so I wonder if that's a mistake I'm making, and so I'm going to try scaling back the terrain on my boards the next few times I play and see what happens.
Okay. Well, like anything, it's always an experiment. It's like how much is too much and how much is too little.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's just kind of one of those balancing acts that you kind of play as you go. And it looks much more thematically kind of fulfilling to have a board completely packed with shit.
Yep.
And crates and stuff for people to hide behind. And it's great from a role-playing kind of perspective. But I think as Kill Team kind of moves into a matched play kind of phase, what you'll find is that you'll have much emptier boards.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is the competitive play pack that was done for Nova for Kill Team.
Yeah.
That I think that's what we were talking about last episode, wasn't it, Doug?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah,
a little bit of last episode. And look, if anybody want me, it's still up for download.
It's really good. I recommend it.
I think it's on the Nova website, actually. It's not on the Games Workshop one. Or maybe
really?
it's in, I'm pretty sure. But
in my Google Drive, message me.
Yeah, shoot us a message. We can put a link out for it. It changes the missions. It changes the board and the board setups. So they've looked at, and these are games. This is a Games Workshop written package. So they've looked at match play and they've looked at what's in the Kill Team book, and they've actually decided that for competitive play, which is separate to match play now, according to Games Workshop, because they've put this players pack out. So going for that like airtight balancing.
Yeah.
Yes, you need to play different missions. You need to play different tabletop setups and everything else.
Yeah.
So I guess that's probably something that's worth keeping in mind, that if you want to see how Games Workshop envisages that super competitive aspect in terms of the setup and whatnot, grab the Nova pack and take a look.
Yeah, one of the things I really love about that pack, actually, while we're talking about it, is the fact that players bring their own kill zones.
Yeah.
So you can kind of bring a zone that's going to work quite well for your team. And you might not play on it every time because you might play on the other guy's one. But that's really cool as a way to kind of shake up terrain as well as like deployment and stuff.
Yeah, like it's almost like like instead of them having something like a deck building component, like you've got like a battlefield that you get to kind of put together, I guess. So obviously, you know, you want to stack that in your own favor and work out how you're going to use it, which is an interesting concept.
Yeah, I really like it. I think there's a lot of play in that sort of
like home field advantage style idea.
Yeah, and I'd imagine that you'd get there with like the scouting phase in the full kind of play out of a Kill Team game, the phase that we never play.
Yeah.
Where you do like the trying to outmaneuver each other and that sort of thing. So I'd imagine whoever kind of comes out on top of that will get to pick where the fight happens, which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I love all that stuff. I think the matched and competitive play Kill Team stuff is going to be really tight and good by the looks of things.
Yeah.
At least at the moment, I'm not sure how commanders are going to play into that as they start coming out, but I'm excited for that expansion, and I wonder if that'll help scratch the 40k itch a little bit more by having a big hero.
Yeah,
it's still not tanks though, I guess, is it?
So. Yeah, I can't quite work out what it is, but because I'm such a guard player at heart, I do want to push a lot of tanks around and some rather big tanks at times, and I think that's what it's. For me, that's why it's not scratching that itch at the moment. But
look, just replace your tanks with Ogrins. They're pretty much the same. They're way about the same.
God,
well, there's no Ogrins in Kill Team either.
What is this? I'm done.
Yeah. But no, totally agree. It was very fun playing indoors in the spaceship and getting murdered by a bunch of very creepy Steel Cult cultists.
Yes, Brother Long Touch is out to get you.
Oh, don't. That's still creepy.
So, for context, dear listeners, there's a Gene Stealer Cult Lash Whip that is not being held by the hybrid that's armed with it. It's just his index finger.
What?
So he's just got this incredibly creepy, long, flexible index finger, which has it's like 2 inches off the rest of his body. And he's just like going out to bad touch people. It's great.
Jeez, does he have a Misty Whippy van to drive around in?
He did quite well actually through most games, mostly because he was creeping out the Marines, and they were like, "No, please no, go away."
Not going near Slender Man.
He had something like 5 attacks on the charge. Didn't he?
He was insane. I ran him as a
specialist.
I think I ran him as the Zealot. But he was the metamorph leader, which meant that he had an extra attack on top of your average acolyte leader, which I didn't realize when I built the list. But holy shit!
Yeah,
5 attacks on the charge is nuts.
And he was like -1 or -2 AP as well.
Yeah, because he was hitting with his bone sword as well. Yeah,
which was something. And look, I think, and this is something that you and I were discussing after that game, is it's kind of like, almost from like my first shooting phase, there was like in both the games that we played, there wasn't much chance of me winning them. And not because like, you know, it was over before it started. It was just that in Kill Team, when you've got a horde team versus a specialist team, if the specialist team aren't basically taking guys out of action or at least flesh wounding them with every shot they fire,
they're about to get run over.
Yeah, like you can't come back from it because you don't have the actions, you don't have the shots to deal with it. And one thing I sort of found was I would have 1.5 shooting phases before I got locked into combat.
Yeah.
And as much as like a Primaris Intercessor's got 2 attacks, which is fairly good, and you know, a 3+ save isn't too bad. That's it.
Yeah, they're no gene stealers.
Yeah, when they get pile on, that's the problem.
Yeah, and especially when you end up with, you know, like Mr. Bad Touch, who was throwing like 4 or 5 dice at a time. There was a pure strain gene stealer that was in there. They've all got some EP modifiers. They've all got that sort of stuff.
Yeah. And the guy with the rock sword, just kind of can opening guys.
Oh, yeah.
And 4, just like, yep, take him off.
Yeah. So that's something I guess to keep in mind. Like I definitely think from, you know, still watching quite a bit of competitive Kill Team, the more bodies you can put on a table is generally the best way to play.
Yeah, or super resilient bodies like Death Guard who can just sort of soak the hits and.
Yeah, that was what I was going to say. Is like Death Guard work very well because obviously they've got 3+ saves, but they've all got disgusting resilient on there. So they've kind of all got invulnerables, feel no pains, whatever you want to call them. But yeah, no, I completely agree. It's a very interesting game. I think we're still in the sort of scratch and sniff section. I mean, scratch the surface and sort of see how it goes.
Yeah.
And look, it's definitely something that Games Workshop said they're going to support, and they've turned it into a competitive play. I guess as a counterpoint to like Underworlds, like Shadespire and Nightvault.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm pretty keen to see where it goes. I think if anybody was doing competitive Kill Team, like at a tournament here in Sydney, I'd probably try and give it a go. Like,
I'd probably try and make it.
Competitive 40K, I'm still not super interested in. I'd happily play one-off competitive games, but to go to a tournament doesn't interest me so much. But competitive Kill Team, I would almost pack a bag and try and get a leave pass to do that.
I guess because it's a smaller bag to pack, right? And if it's a whitewash game, it's over in an hour.
Yeah, that's probably part of it as well, actually. Yeah,
you're not going to have to like have your fucking shit pushed in for like the next 3 hours. It's literally like, oh, this game is over in like half an hour. Cool. All right, on to the next one.
Oh, well, actually, to be perfectly honest, it's more if the person you end up playing is an absolute cunt, you're only playing them for like 30 minutes or 40 minutes.
That's right. And then
is probably more like my idea behind.
Yeah. And then hopefully you don't have to play them again. For the whole event. Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, it's really cool. So, like, guys, if you're not playing Kill Team and you're even vaguely Kill Team curious, I was trying to think of a better way to say that, but yeah, give it a go. It's just like, even if you just buy the core rules and play with the guys that you've already got from an army you've got, start there, have fun with it, stick around, play with a mate, like, yeah,
just see how it goes, really.
And then if you like it, pick up a kill zone that you like the look of, or 2 or 5, depending. Get a kill team with all the fancy cards in it, all that sort of stuff. Like, you can go almost as big or as small as you like with it, I guess, at the end of the day. But if you can. I know a lot of places say that you can start really small. You can legitimately start quite small with Kill Team.
Yeah, like, put it this way: if you've played 40K or are playing 40K, there's only a few instances where if you only owned like one army, and like, for fuck's sake, who only owns one army? You've already got a Kill Team.
Yeah, that's it.
You've already, like, the only issue is like if you actually, Steve falls into this category. If you only play Custodes, that's a problem. He's got Tau, I guess,
and Imperial Fists.
Oh, yeah, no, I guess you could use
them in
40K. Yeah, you could just build a Space Marine Kill Team. And obviously, like, if you're a Demons player, that you end up having a bit of an issue. But other than that, yeah.
Also, Kroot. If you're running all Kroot, you're going to have a problem.
Kroot Carnival.
Although, for narrative games, the guys over at Masters of the Forge made a Kroot kill team roster.
Oh, yeah.
Which is actually really cool, and I recommend that.
Is it similar to the old... Remember the old Kroot Carnival mercenary list they put out a long time ago?
I played against that in a tournament.
How was that to play against?
That was great. It was even a combat patrol tournament, so it was basically this level of game. And he had 2 shapers with like melter guns or something, which was quite high end for combat patrol. And like maybe 8 or so other Kroot carnivores just kind of running around, and I was running I think Chaos Marines at that stage with the Iron Warriors.
Okay.
Which was fun. So I managed to bolter down a whole bunch of them.
I was going to say you were just playing with Obliterators, weren't you?
No, I had Chaos Marines, I had an autocannon, and I had a plasma gun, maybe? Yes, it was a plasma gun, because the running joke was that my plasma guns in every kill team or combat patrol game I played always overheated and melted the poor bastard who was carrying it on the first shot. Every bloody game. Including that one, but he killed one of the guys with the melter gun, so that's all right. But yes, yeah. So there's lots of cool stuff out there as well, like the Kroot Carnivore kind of kill team. It's cool. I recommend it.
Awesome.
End of intro.
So what have you guys been up to in the hobby?
My name's first again, so I guess I just keep talking. I have been painting more ghosts, which has been really cool. So I got my second squad of Hex Wraiths done out of the converted Dreadblade Harrows. I painted
100%. Sorry to cut you off.
No, that's okay.
But 100%. If you play Nighthaunt, you need to see these models and just do this. Sometimes when you see people's conversions of stuff, or kit bashes, and you're just like, there's stuff that looks like a kit bash, and then there's stuff that just looks like how it should have come out of the factory.
Yes.
That's what I feel about these ones.
Well, thank you.
Oh, that's very high praise from you, Andrew.
It is. It's quite nice. Thank you. I feel.
No. Honestly, it doesn't matter who would have done this conversion. Like, I was just looking at them the other day, and I'm like, the issue is what are they? Hex Wraiths?
Hex Wraiths, yeah.
The aesthetic no longer fits.
Correct.
And it's so jarring when you see armies with the Hex Wraiths in. And I'm just like, whereas like what you've done is not particularly complex or difficult by any step of the imagination, but it's just so much fucking better.
Yeah. Because it's borrowing. So the big thing with Nighthaunt, right? Any Nighthaunt model that's been released with the new Nighthaunt releases, which is most of them except for the Hex Wraiths, have a lot of negative space in them. So there's just like empty gaps in the cloaks and all that sort of thing. Hex Wraiths are full of bones, which is 90% of their problem.
Yeah, actually, now you say that, that's 100%.
That's very true, actually.
Plus, they've got like fire hats and shit, which is just weird. And like little flails on the end of their sides. What the fuck? Anyway, I don't like the Hex Wraith models, if you can't tell. So I put Grimghast Reapers on top of the Dreadblade Harrow horses, and they're my Hex Wraiths. Which, if you don't collect anything Nighthaunt, that will make no sense to you. But I promise it makes sense. It's ghosts with scythes on top of ghost horses instead of skeletons with flail scythes on top of skeleton horses in a ghost army. So that's cool. And yesterday, my next 10 Hex Wraiths came in for my all cavalry Nighthaunt army, so I've got to think about how I'm going to differentiate them from the current 10. I have plans. It's okay.
Decisions.
But I also painted Reichnor, the Grimhaler, who's the guy on the Nightmare, the winged horse.
Yeah, he's the one whose horse has like a candle hat.
Yes, correct. And he's got a candle shoulder. It's great.
Fair enough. Anything else?
He's lots of fun. I've started on my Soul Snare Shackles, which are an endless spell from Malign Sorcery. Which is cool. They're basically just chains coming out of the ground, so I've got to think about how I'm going to make them look different. I think I'm going to have a green glow coming out from the crack in the earth that they're coming out of to match the rest of the Nighthaunt, but we'll see.
Very nice.
I've weathered my Atlas and my Trojan for my Imperial Guard army, which is cool.
Very nice.
I've painted some Skyfires and a Demon Prince for that 1,000 Suns commission that's coming along.
How much trim do you have left for that army now?
Well, the rubrics are all done, so it's just Zangors and Demon Princes now.
Ooh, very nice. Getting towards the end.
Which is still a lot of trim, because Zangors have a lot of trim. But
you're making progress with them. That's the main thing.
Yeah. I've painted more than half the models now, which is good. But then there's the 3 custodes at the end of it as well. Shit. It'll be fine. They're going to be solo watch, actually, so that'll be quite cool to muck around with. I've been building those Epic Night Lords still as well, getting them ready to get some paint on maybe over the next couple of weeks. And my Knight magnets finally arrived from last episode, so I've been putting magnets in my Knight.
Awesome. Which
has been good. So it's now got... what weapons did I give it? It's got an Avenger Gatling Cannon, the Taro Model Maker Buzzsaw Arm as the Reaper Chainsword. It's got the Thunderstrike Gauntlet, which is just the Power Fisty one. The Hecaton Siege Claw, which is the Styrex Majira specialist weapon.
Oh, yeah.
It's got the Styrex Volkite Caravel, the Majira Lightning Cannon.
You literally put everything on it.
It's got... and the other one is the Preceptor Las Impulsor. Also from Taro Model Maker, as a result of my protest purchase of that instead of Canis Rex.
Have you bought a Canis Rex yet?
I haven't, because I'm still upset with Games Workshop for the way they handled it. I might buy a Canis Rex at some stage, but I've already accidentally bought an extra Knight, and I don't need 3. That's what else I did, though. I did order some posable Knight legs from soldark.ru.
I saw you pushing those in one of the chats the other day.
Yeah, I was just asking if anyone had any experience with them. No one had, so I figure I can take one for the team on that one. But it just stops having 2 Knights with the same legs.
Oh yeah, so just there again, they just look that slightly bit different.
Well, I'm going to have one in a full tilt run, so
okay, so
sufficiently different that I'm going to have some fun with it. Yeah, I think that's everything. There's a lot of stuff
that's a lot.
Talk it through. But I really enjoyed painting the Hex Wraiths and Reichnor. I really enjoyed working on the Atlas and the Trojan. And a lot of the rest of it was just work. So
yeah, had to be done.
Which is fun too, in case any of the guys who I'm painting this stuff for are listening. I promise I'm enjoying it. It's just not my stuff, so I'm not enjoying it quite as much.
Fair enough.
# sorry, not sorry. Andrew, what have you been up to?
Not much.
Cool.
I've sort of had one of those between the last episode and now. I've even completely dropped off the 10 minutes a day bandwagon. I've just gone through, I think, what's probably been the busiest 2 weeks I've ever had at work, which is kind of saying something. And it's when I sort of get busy at work, just because of the sort of work that I do, I end my brain just packs up at the end of the day. Like it's lots of paperwork. It's lots of writing and things like that I've got to do. So, I've had a couple of nights recently where I've gotten home at 8 o'clock at night, sat on the couch, and then looked up at about 11:30 and gone to bed. And I haven't moved. It's just been absolute mosh. So I haven't really done any hobby. A bit of tinkering with a few kill team ideas. One thing that I keep coming back to, because I'm sort of looking at Scion's, Imperial Guard, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is just packing lots of special weapons, specifically plasma guns, into kill teams.
Who did that? That was somebody else was talking about that too.
It seems to be coming to the front as one of the better builds for
an 8 plasma gun meta.
I haven't managed to work out how you sort 8 out, but you can get a lot. So yeah, I've sort of been looking at some ideas with that.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is potentially looking at an alternative Steel Legion scheme.
Okay.
I'm trying to get, and this is kind of previous to last episode, but also been thinking about it. And I bought some I bought another 40 Steel Legion off somebody the other day.
Just because you don't have enough already.
Well, no, what I was actually thinking, Rob, and this benefits you, is next month's October, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I would imagine that, we're going to want to play a few, big orc games, and who better to face off against your orcs than the Steel Legion, right?
Well, I'll caveat that slightly in that if it's like anything like the last codex I got, I'll be selling all the orcs next month.
But you've got the boss on the trike. The boss on the trike.
I don't know about him anymore. I don't know.
Oh God, Rob's getting cold feet, and it hasn't even turned up yet.
Yeah, I know.
Sell orcs by night. It's fine.
Well, mind you, I do have things. Either I keep playing the old one, or I sell the current one and just go back to the old knob biker list.
Yes, do it.
Hot. So anyway, like I've been tinkering around with a few things like that. But other than that, no, that's kind of the other thing I did right, although it's not my hobby, is that my first Adeptus Titanicus Warlord and my terrain from the Grandmaster box came back from Martin at Monkey Miniatures.
Oh, very nice.
And it looks absolutely fucking awesome. All I've got to do is just get some magnets into the magnet holes. Once Jay tells me what size
what size are they?
And where I can buy some from. And then comes and does it for me. That would be really great, Jay. Just put that on your list, mate. But yeah, no, that's all I've done. I'm actually hoping that over this weekend, Rob, I think you and I have got a game on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, I think we did.
So whatever we're playing on Sunday, and I imagine there'll be a little bit of more time for some hobby in there. I actually want to get that Death Guard Spartan that I've been tinkering with for the last little while wrapped up and done this weekend. So if I do that, that'll be a nice tick in the box.
Nice.
Beautiful.
Rob, what have you been doing?
What have I been doing? Similar in the same kind of vein as you. New job means new shit for me to learn. So I've been hardly learning a lot of shit. That's why
where Lithgow is?
Yeah, fucking Lithgow, man. Get to go out there tomorrow and hang out at Lithgow. So yeah, actually, I'll tell you right now, it's the very first time I'm going to Lithgow. I've been out to Bathurst many, many, many times, but never actually stopped in Lithgow and actually hung around the place. So if anyone's out at Lithgow Hospital on the 28th of the 9th, you'll see me there tomorrow. But this episode will come out after that. So too bad I'll be gone by then. So what have I been doing?
That was a roller coaster.
Yeah, I could totally see somebody there, some sort of crazed listener fan, of which I'm sure there's millions, I could go to Lithgow and stab myself and then call an ambulance, and then I could maybe see Robert Lithgow.
I was going to say,
and if they didn't listen to the end of that, they'll be really disappointed and will have stabbed themselves for nothing, Rob.
Yeah, pretty much. Or the other one where they deliberately go to Lithgow and then just shoot me with a revolver.
Like John Lennon-esque, but in Lithgow?
Pretty much, yeah. I don't know. I could go with that. I could go out in a blaze of glory. But no. So what have I been doing? Magnetizing and converting. So this could go, mind you, I'll caveat something to begin with. I've been consolidating a lot of my stuff. So currently all of my Warhammer is spread out liberally across 2 rooms of my house. And my wife has told me to fucking get it all down into 1 room. So I've been hurriedly sort of trying to consolidate and condense everything. So I've been going through a lot of the old random boxes that I've got around here, which have still got, I pulled open the one the other day, which still has 2 Storm Eagles sitting in it. So I think I got those so long ago, they're just still sitting in a box somewhere. I actually ended up finding a Stormlord that I hadn't built and was still on the sprue. So I started constructing that. I think I actually bought it off you, Andrew.
I was just going to say, I feel like I sold you a Stormlord
ages ago.
I think I was still living in Oatley.
Yeah, probably.
So that's probably 4 years ago.
It's been sitting in a box. And I think when I bought it, you were like, oh, I gave it all the parts. But no, that asshole who sold it to me didn't include the Shadow Sword gun in it. So,
yeah, that's right. Yeah. Because I think I wanted a Shadow Sword and he's like, no, everything was there. Yeah. I do remember that tank. Yep. Okay.
So, it's sitting currently in front of me. So I pulled it out and realized it didn't have a Shadow Sword or gun. And, after cursing you and maybe, pulling out the Voodoo doll again, I ended up purchasing a Warhound Titan turbo laser arm.
Oh, right. Not just a Titan.
Yep. And I'll convert the turbo laser into a Shadow Sword. And also, of course, being me, it has to now be filled with magnets. But I had actually run out with them, so I'd actually got a restock of magnets this week. So I've got about.
Hey Rob, just quick question: what size are the magnets? Jay wants to know.
Where do you get them from?
Where do I get them from? Easiest placement, fucking eBay. Because the guys on eBay who are like, yeah, we'll just like express overnight delivery your N50 magnets are phenomenal. So, and what size are they? I could tell you, but I'm not going to bore you with bore the listeners.
You'd have to kill me, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
So, got a bunch of those. So I've been pyrally magnetizing a Stormlord up to turn it into a Shadow Sword. So again, Perturabo can drive around in his, automated pimp wagon.
Fucking tormentor.
Yeah, pretty much, man. Come on. So I've been working on that recently.
That FAQ, damn it.
Damn it needs to be FAQ to make it even better. So yeah, working on that at the moment. That's been where I've been spending a lot of time when I haven't been at work. Messing around with Iron Warriors. So while you guys were talking before, I was washing 3 Iron Warriors that were close enough for me to grab and have something to do while we're doing this. So that was nice and easy. But I've been working on a couple of others on the table. And the other thing I've been doing is fucking losing shit. So as I've been saying last time I was on, I was saying I've been working on some orcs. So I had 20 orcs I'd been working on, and I can now only locate 7 of them and can't locate all the paints I was using. So I have no idea where they've all gone. They've all ended up in a box somewhere in my house. So hopefully I'll find those this weekend.
So you have a cat and you have a wife. Which one are you blaming?
The wife. Because the cat is slightly more trustworthy.
A friend.
Yeah. Well, she's currently in another room and can't hear me, so I'll say her, but if she was in here, it'd be the cat.
That seems fair.
You're learning.
Play fast and loose. So yeah, that's what I've been up to. So again, probably me and Andrew combined don't equal what Doug has done.
That's always the fucking case, though.
Yeah. So he makes us look bad, but he also pulls the standard up slightly.
Awesome. Well, games played, lads.
Back to you, Dougie.
Back to me, or do we want to start with? Yeah, no, we'll start with me. So what have I been up to for games played? I had an Age of Sigmar tourney prep game with Double Dip, his Beast Claw versus my Nighthaunt, which was a lot of fun.
I just wanted to shout out Double Dip. I just had a look at his completed Beast Claw army that we were talking about before. It looks very nice.
It does.
Looks very nice.
Very, very pretty. His butcher's great. Have you seen his butcher conversion?
The guy lugging the giant pot of sweet and sour sauce around?
That's the one.
Awesome.
So his butcher with his cauldron of shit is sitting on a, don't even know what the hell it's called, little woolly rhino thing. And he's riding it around, which is cool. Fits his army better. Yeah, I like that. That's neat. Anyway, so that's what Damo's been up to in the hobby. But no, so we played that. I ran my full 2,000 point Nighthaunt for the first time against his Beast Claws, which was cool. His monsters kind of murked most of my stuff pretty quick because they're big, scary monsters, and I've got little ghost dudes. But I managed to box him in enough that I could take the objectives without too much trouble. So that was a win for the Nighthaunt and cemented my love of the Death Riders battalion, which is Dreadblade Harrow, 2 units of Hex Wraiths, and a Black Coach. Black Coach is cool.
Have you had a chance to run double that yet?
No, the parts just came in this week. So I've got to do some building and converting, and then I'll run them, and I will report back. I suspect it's not going to be as good as I'm hoping it is, which is a shame. But that's fine too. I'll keep it for fun games, and I'll have 2 Black Coaches. What else have I done? I played some Kill Team with Andrew, but I'll let you talk about those games. And I did some 40k tourney prep with Adrian, so Death Guard Ado on Instagram. He's a good lad. He wanted to run his Imperial Guard as a test for a tournament in Hawkesbury, I think this weekend. Is that this weekend or next?
I think it's next weekend because I think all those guys are going to be at Moab.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Damo was for Moab, and then Adrian was for the week after, which was kind of cool. So I ran my tournamentiest list against his guard to give him a bit of a practice of what it's going to be like fighting in a tourney. So I took a Imperial Guard command point battery and 3 knights. So I took a Valiant and 2 Helverins, and that was my 1750 list.
So now one of us has actually played what is pretty close, like 90% of the top worldwide tournament list at the moment. Is it a fun list to play?
I feel like it would be less fun if I were running a Castellan instead of a Valiant.
Right.
Because the Castellan just sort of sits at the back and murders like everything without ever really being in any sort of threat range. Like it's never going to get melter gunned or anything like that because there's a bubble wrapper guard around it, and the Helverins are just going to run out and take objectives and stuff.
Yep.
But I really like running around with the Valiant just because it's fun to fire the harpoon at things and like burn things off with the conflagration cannon and just all that. Like the guns are so much fun.
Yeah. Okay.
Mind you, Doug, as you fire the harpoon, do you do your best Captain Ahab impression?
No, I tended to scream fire the Ursus Claw. I murked Pask in one hit with that thing though. Because it's a flat 10 damage and it does D3 mortal wounds on top.
Yeah.
Like the thing is just a phenomenal gun. It's only one shot, which is the problem with it. But holy crap, the House Raven stratagem. Why are more people not using that House Raven stratagem? So I popped it just about every turn the Valiant was in range against Adrian. 2 command points. Reroll any one in the entire shooting phase with that unit.
Jeez.
So you roll a 1 for the number of shots on your conflagration cannon? Nah, mate, reroll it.
Reroll it, shit.
D3 damage. Oh, you rolled a 1 or a 2? Nah, mate, reroll it because it counts as a 1 because it's a D3.
Jeez.
1 to hit, don't care, reroll it.
Nice.
Yeah, so it was just fantastic. And I gave the Valiant the Ion Shield, the Ion Bulwark and Sainted Ion. So he had a 2+ armor, 4+ invulnerable save.
Mm-hmm.
So he was pretty untouchable, which was nice. And then if I needed to, I could rotate the Ion Shields to make him a 3+ invulnerable.
3+ invulnerable, yeah.
So like it was just all the tournament tricks that I knew of, basically distilled into a list.
Yeah, nice. Well, I guess that's what he was looking for, right?
Well, that's right. That was kind of what I figured. I was like, I can run something like I could run what I would run in a friendly game, but that wouldn't be a tournament list. Whereas this would be a list I'd take to a tournament.
Yeah.
And Helverins continue to be fan-freaking-tastic. 4d3 shots, three flat damage per hit. Like just good stuff.
And in other news,
14 inches.
And in other news, water is wet and the sun will rise tomorrow morning.
Yeah, well, so in fact, my Helverins were so good that Adrian's actually dropping some stuff in his list to take a pair of Helverins.
You have converted him to the Helverin way.
They're just so good. Hitting on 3s, 3-up armor, 5-up invulnerable. It's just, they're hard to top.
And they're like 60-inch range, isn't it? On the
60-inch range on the cannons, 14-inch movement. So they basically just go where they want and they still shoot what they want.
Yeah, they do whatever they feel like.
Mm-hmm. So I because we're playing the tournament's playing with like the ITC mission pack.
Oh yeah.
So I chose a secondary, having someone in each table quarter. So like start of the game, the 2 Helverins just sort of bolted for the corners, and then the Valiant went up the middle, and then all of my guard was sitting in my corner. I was like, all right, there you go. Next.
Sick. Fair enough.
But that was a lot of fun. I think Adrian had some fun with it, which was cool. So we played 2 games, and in the second game, he borrowed one of my Helverins, and it was instrumental in killing the Valiant in that game. Although it died on Overwatch to an Annihilator, which was sad. Didn't even blow up, but that's fine.
There's always next time.
But I had run out of command points in that game by that stage because I could not roll any of my Kurov's Aquila Grand Strategist farm points back. That was fine. It's fine. It's fine. It did its job. It murked most of his army. So
well, that's the thing with any of those. Like you can prepare as much as you can, but then you rely on that one thing, and it's just like, no, I'm not going to give you anything.
Yeah. Well, that's what I love about that reroll 1 stratagem for House Raven. It's just like, cool. All right, well, I rolled 3 1s with a conflagration cannon, but I get to reroll all of them.
I don't care.
Yeah, it's so good. Guys, run House Raven. I love them so much. I know there are other ones that are more popular, like Hawk Shroud and Tyrannus, but House Raven, Run and shoot your heavy weapons. It's great. Anyway, sorry, that's me. That's what I've been doing. So hopefully Adrian's building his Helverins as we speak and painting them up in cool colors.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Rob, what was your games played?
Oh, all right. Well, I got to play the off the wall game. I got to play Eldar versus Iron Warriors in 30k.
Very cool.
So this is with Andrew Hollis's rule set. So I played Damo because he wanted to put his hand up and play some pull his Eldar out of the cupboard and blow the dust off and have a bit of a game. So mind you, it was a game. It was a game, but it also was a test of the rule set. Which, like, playing the game, like we set up, I brought a pretty standard middle of the road list. So I took out some of the more common units that I bring in my list and brought a few units I don't normally bring in my list. Like I think I took like heavy weapon squads and stuff like that, which I don't normally take in some of my builds. Damo opted for a fire dragon heavy army with a big unit of jet bikes and also a what do you call the big guys? Wraith Knight. And also brought, is it Mogan? No, not Mogan, right? He's the Dark Reaper one. What's who's Fugan? That's him. Who in this new rule set made all fire dragons objectives secured, so they could just go and hop on their objectives, and we were playing Dominion. Big highlights out of the game. Wraith Knights, even though Andrew has toned them down by taking the D weapons off them, are still phenomenal, even with their strength 10 shots and their like really nice missile launchers. And it's still super hard to kill unless you like start like putting fire on them. In the end, I think I just ignored it. I was just like, whatever, it can just shoot its shots every turn. I'll just go and do other stuff. Phoenix Lords, hard to kill. Jet bikes and things like that, as long if you catch them out in the open, they still like just disintegrate and things like that. We played 3/4 of the way through until I was ordered to come home by the wife. But yeah, fucking really fucking good game. Really fucking good game, actually. Like, I haven't played Eldar like in a long time. Like, that's the biggest thing about it. It brings back so many memories of actually playing them. Like, Damien wasn't running the quote unquote cheese list of Eldar, which, Andrew has toned a bit of that down, but you probably still can do in some way, shape, or form. But it actually was a good game playing something again in 30k that you don't get to play, which is, your Xenos factions. So yeah, a couple of points that came out of that. So I've got to pop them in an email, send them through to Mr. Hollis to see what he thinks. I'll probably get told that as normal I'm an idiot, but hey, may influence something.
Nice.
Very cool. Sweet. So like, what do you feel the rule set as it stands at the moment, which is basically like, I'm not sure if they're beta rules or released rules or whatever Andrew would want to call them at the moment, but do you feel like in the realm of 30k and how people generally play 30k, it's worth giving them a shot? Did we just lose Rob?
Sorry, was that?
No, there he is. Good. So, like, how are they? Do they fit in the 30k kind of
yes, they do.
Game, or are they
fit in the way like the way Andrew's written them in an essence is very similar to how like a Space Marine list is sort of constructed in the way of 30k. Which, look, that's one of Damien's observations of it, and one of the things that I've got to pop in a message and send back to Andrew. Also, you do need to build your list with some kind of specialization in mind when it comes to your aspect shrines and things like that, because you can't take a unit of swooping hawks and a unit of fire dragons and a unit of dire avengers. You're pretty much in many ways, especially when it comes to your exarchs and things like that, really restricting yourself to sort of specializing down one path, which Damien did, and he just brought a lot of fire dragons for his list. But again, I think they do have a place. Like from a fluff perspective, we know the Xenos races, and well, most of the Xenos races, look, Tyranids, whatever, don't bring it up, are running around in the 31st millennium, actively involved in this. Like, yes, we don't have books, books 5, 6, and 7 don't talk about, Eldar turn up at Prospero and do this, and but we know during the Great Crusade, and we know at the time around this, that there are Xenos races active, and we know that some of the Xenos races actively use the time of the heresy to sort of push into the Imperium because they know they're distracted by this ongoing civil war.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, from a from a narrative standpoint and from a a friendly game standpoint, 100%. Like I would not be upset if I had to play Eldar again or multiple times again. And like we know Andrew was working on more rules at this point. He's working on other Eldar lists. I think he was talking about working on orcs and things like that. And a lot of people have these armies sitting in their cupboards and would be more than happy to pull them out and pop them down on the table and play a game once again. Like as you know, I've got orcs here in front of me, and I'm happy to play them in 40k. I'm happy to play them in 30k. Like they just need to be sort of modernized and brought up to standard, so you can actually play them in that sort of in that game system.
Cool, very nice.
Makes sense.
Cool. Who won?
Damien won. Even when we had to call it, Damien was ahead on Dominion points.
Cool.
So barring me tabling him, like I don't think I was going to come back from that one.
Awesome. I guess I will talk about the two Kill Team games that we played last week, Doug, because you graciously left them so that I would have something to chat about quickly. So if you keep a watch on the Facebook and the Instagram page, you would have seen some shots from it. We decided to give, as we said at the beginning of the episode, indoors Kill Team a bit of a go. So we used the Battle Systems Kickstarter terrain, which apparently you can now buy off the Battle Systems website.
You sure can.
Which is really cool because I thought that was totally only like a Kickstarter thing. So we played Deathwatch Primaris versus Genestealer Cult.
Mm-hmm.
So in the first one, the Deathwatch had boarded a pilgrim ship that they felt was slightly suspect due to the length of somebody's finger. That received a tip-off. And yeah, look, just what I said at the beginning still stands, is lots and lots of fun. We were playing the missions out of the new Rogue Trader Kill Team.
Yeah, the narrative one.
So the first one we played was the Deathwatch trying to take over the bridge of the pilgrim ship. And basically I just wasn't killing enough guys fast enough.
Yeah.
So there was no way. Like I basically got bogged down in corridors and just eventually dogpiled and murdered. But look, still a fun game. And then the second one, somehow the Deathwatch ship that had intercepted the pilgrim ship had been infected or infested through some sort of cross-contamination. And so at some point, all these Genestealer cultists appeared on the Deathwatch ship.
There's lower decks, man. You've got to keep an eye on them.
That's it. So we were playing a mission where there are like 3 spawn points, and everybody just keeps respawning. But you don't do like injury rolls and things like that for the
people out of action straight away.
Guys. You just take them out of action straight away, which we kind of messed up for a turn, which was fine. But look, it's the same thing. If every shot that you fire with a bolt rifle is not taking somebody out of action,
you're fucked.
You're not going to win that game definitely against Genestealer Cult. And the other thing that we found that was very, very beneficial to Genestealer Cult is Cult Ambush. Because you like Doug was getting to the point where half of his kill team would get Cult Ambush. So
there were some good rolls.
Yeah, there were some very good rolls, and then you were even closer to me. But because of obviously because of the terrain, you were very close, but I couldn't see you. So I couldn't shoot you. I couldn't overwatch you. It was a case of, well, fuck it. I'll just move back and hopefully I can take a charge and kill you. And almost in no cases did that actually happen. So, yeah.
Genestealers did what Genestealers normally do. Run in the solar thing, kill everyone.
Well, it was very Space Hulky, I thought.
Yeah. Actually, it was definitely Kill Team Space Hulk, which it was a lot of fun.
Which mind you, look like my first encounter with Genestealers was 3rd edition Genestealers, where it was
12 attacks a piece or something, and it was like,
Genestealers have power weapons, so fuck you.
Sorry, just take that Terminator squad off the table. Thank you.
You think they're tough? No, they're not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So one thing I think I would do it, and I actually was tinkering with your kill team list, Doug, for the Deathwatch guys, is basically just put a few special weapons in there. So like get some either frag cannons or flamers into it. Do a few other things like that. And I think because my issue is obviously I can't roll dice for shit.
So more dice.
So anything that like gives me more dice to roll or removes my need to roll the dice in the first place is very helpful.
So any bonus heavy bolters then? Flamers everywhere?
Yeah, so we might play another Deathwatch versus Gene Stealer cult at some point.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah. But anyway, that's games played for everybody, which is very, very cool. So we'll speed through some new stuff. Rob, what did you have?
All right. I'm going with something that's not traditionally new, but something which is a re-release. I'm going with the Eastling Cataphracts or however the hell you want to pronounce it, because someone will always tell me I'm wrong. So I'm going with Lord of the Rings for this one, which is pretty unusual for me. Again, look, I don't mind Lord of the Rings. I've played it. I haven't played it recently, so someone will tell me, "Oh, you don't understand about it anymore." Like, whatever. I love these models. They have that proper Middle Eastern sort of Parthian sort of vibe where they've got the armored rider and the armored horse. Again, the horse isn't running around in full plate armor like you normally see most like armored knights. Like if we flipped over to the Minas Tirith knights, again they're all running around in full plates. They look kind of medieval-esque and things like that, which is that's fun, that's their aesthetic. But I love these guys in the way that they're like they've got the scale mail, they've got the squared or the oblong kind of shields, and they've got their own aesthetic. Like I really fucking like the drummer guy. Look, he's the drummer guy in the unit, so like he's probably going to die pretty quickly. But they are fucking cool looking unit. I think it's also the whole fact that I love anything from the Eastling range that they put out or from the Haradrim range. Always looks phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that is my new thing of the fortnight.
So we're not talking about Smaug, are we?
No, fuck Smaug.
Okay, I don't care. Great.
Smaug. Smaug.
I'm next.
Yeah,
you are.
That's interesting. Look at that.
Surprise.
So I want to talk quickly about Wake the Dead. Wake the Dead is a new 40k campaign box set. Hot on the heels of, I think the last one was Tooth and Claw that came out when the Space Wolf Codex dropped last month. So Wake the Dead is Primaris Space Marines versus Eldar, and specifically like very wraithy Eldar.
Mm-hmm.
What I actually want to talk about, because this box set only has 2 new models in it, and that is you get a new Spirit Seer sculpt, which is something I think people have been waiting on for a while. And it's a very, very nice Spirit Seer sculpt if you have a look at it. And they've actually at the moment on the Warhammer community website, they have a bit of like designer commentary with it. And they talk about how Spirit Seers are closer to Farseers than Warlocks. They have a very specific role in Eldari society. Obviously, like they look after and cultivate all the Wraith bone, and they look after the war constructs when they inevitably end up in a biff with somebody. And there's certain like design cues they've taken from the Farseers to make them look elevated over like a garden variety Warlock or something like that. But it's an absolutely gorgeous kit. Like I really do like it. So that's in there. And then the other one out of Wake the Dead is a new Primaris Lieutenant model. So he's not any particular chapter. Obviously, he's painted up as an Ultramarine here. And he's got a very cool wreath on his helmet. He's got the laurels on his helmet there. He's got a power sword and a bolt pistol from the Orca-Things, and a bolt pistol. So yeah, like if you like your Primaris Marines, he'll make a good sergeant or a lieutenant or whatever you want to use him as, which is great. So they're there in that box. Obviously, everything else you get in the box, which is, I think you get some Wraith Guard, maybe even some, I think you get some Guardians.
Yeah, you get some Guardians, a weapon platform, 5.
You get a Wave Serpent.
And a Web Serpent, yeah.
And you get some, like, the sort of garden variety Primaris Marines as well. Which is great. I would imagine, I haven't seen how much this is going for yet in Australia, but I'm imagining it's around, the 220 mark, I think these usually are.
Yeah, I suspect about the same as Tooth and Claw, right? So Tooth and Claw.
Yeah, so
it's 250, so it's probably about that.
Yeah, so you get the Primaris Lieutenant, 5 Intercessors, 5 Reavers, and 3 Inceptors. which is pretty decent value. If you've got a friend to split it with or something like that, it's a good way to do it. And you get missions and a bit of a campaign rundown and everything else in here as well, which is actually, I think, the little diamond in the rough that you get with all these boxes is the campaign booklet's usually pretty cool. So that's coming out if anybody is interested in that stuff.
Sweet.
Doug.
Yeah, so I kind of want to talk about the same thing in terms of Battlezone Vigilus or Viglius. No, Vigilus. They've just misspelt it in the bit I was reading. Battlezone Vigilus, which is the place where Wake the Dead's taking place. It's also where Tooth and Claw is taking place. It's also where Speed Freaks is taking place.
Oh, so Speed Freaks is in there as well.
Yeah. So the whole thing behind Speed Freaks is that the orcs have come down and tried to assault the cities, but the void shields are so impenetrable that they've just gone, well,
we'll
fuck that. We'll just go throw burnouts in the car park until you're ready to come out and fight. So off they go. So I kind of love the idea, because the whole idea behind Vigilus is that it's almost the new Cadia, I guess, in terms of it's the anchor point for like one of the only properly charted stable routes between the Imperium of Man and Imperium Nihilus, so the two halves of the galaxy.
Yeah.
And so the Imperium have settled it obviously super quick, because they would like to have control of the galaxy as a whole. And everybody else is kind of just fighting over it now. Like, Eldar are waking up. I'd imagine we'll get a Necron one at some stage where they wake up and are like, no, we've been here forever. Get off our lawn. So it's like, I wonder if it's shaping up to be a little bit like a new Armageddon in terms of like a bit of a melting pot planet that you can kind of hook a whole campaign system around without too much trouble.
Yeah. Oh, look, 100%. Like, I haven't read the Tooth and Claw and I haven't read the Wake the Dead campaign books, but I'll definitely, like, out of the box sets, that's kind of what I'm interested in, as I just said. But I would say that's what they're going to do. You even kind of get the feeling that there's going to be some kill team stuff in there.
Yeah.
And everything else, like, not in the campaign booklets, but in terms of like Vigilus itself, like as a structure, as a narrative structure, or whatever, which is great. Like, this harks back to Forge World War Zones, and things like that. So no, good to see this. Like, I think if you go back through our back catalog, there's an episode where we say, the best thing they could ever do is spend a whole lot of time doing different war zones and things attached to it. And I think this is a good way to do it.
Yeah, for sure. Yep, and I love it because they're kind of starter sets, but they're also campaign sets, which is great. Most of the units they're putting in there are pretty useful, to be honest. Like, every Eldar player can always use another Wave Serpent.
Yeah, the Guardians maybe not so much, but
yeah, but you can, like, I got Pure Strain Gene Stealers in Tooth and Claw as well. I don't need another 20 of them. There's always some duds, but
they're a good like, I think they're kind of to some extent following like a trading card style where it's
for sure.
You could start an army with it, but it's a good booster.
Yes. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's obviously, as we were saying before, like, it is actually quite good value, because if this is a $250 Australian box set, I'm just having a look at what you get here on the Elder side.
Yeah, Wave Serpents are 74 to start with.
Yeah, I think your Wraith Guard are about the same.
Wraith Guard are 55.
55, so that's up at like what, $120?
Yep. Already.
$65 into a unit of Guardians these days, or are they still cheap?
Let's have a look. Guardians are 55.
Okay, so 55. So now we're up at that.
175 plus the Spirit Seer, who's probably about 30 or 40. So that's almost $200 just on the Eldar side.
Yeah, and then obviously the Primera stuff's pretty expensive. So let's say that again. You're probably getting half of this for free by the time you sit down and work it out, and that's about what these boxes have been, right?
Yeah,
like you're getting it at 50% off or whatever it is, providing that's something you actually want. But they seem to be getting better at doing the box sets that people would actually be interested in buying.
Yeah. People are more interested, and there's also value in those boxes too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
and then you split it with a mate, and you're only paying a quarter of what you like of the value of the box each.
Yeah, that too. That always comes up really, really good. Like you can buy the box and have 2 armies. A lot of the time, you want to split it, or you want to buy a part of it to get half the ammo, and then you'll just sell the rest.
Yeah, I don't think I've bought a complete box of any of these ones and kept them yet.
Yeah,
I've either bought a half,
sell it off, or whatever. Yeah,
sold a half or whatever. Yeah. Although I wound up with 2 sets of the Gene Stealer cult side. Don't know quite how that happened. I didn't need that many more acolytes. The aberrants are nice though.
Didn't you just want the rock saw out of it or something?
I wanted the rock saw and I wanted the hypermorph with the storyline. That was kind of all I really wanted. Jeez. But I was aware that I wasn't just going to get that.
That's it.
Like, whatever. A mate selling some or the Stealer cult half, so I'll just get it. That's fine. I'll make another guy with the long touch finger. I'll run 2 of them. Just to really upset the Death Watch.
I literally won't let you in my house.
That seems fair.
That's what will happen here.
That's legitimate. I feel like, if I do that, I should go on some kind of...
Yeah, I'll have you put on some sort of registry or something.
Yeah.
I'll do that again.
That's fair.
Yeah, very cool. So any other new stuff out there?
Do you want to talk about it? Do you want me to talk about it?
You go, Rob.
All right. Biggest thing that came out this week for me and Doug now, Battlefleet Gothic 2 has finally gone up on Steam.
Nice.
So obviously, again, if you've played Battlefleet Gothic 1 or you've played Battlefleet Gothic on tabletop, it's ships shooting at each other pretty much. They did make a video game a couple of years ago, which was set in the Gothic sector. Then they started teasing BFG 2. And it's finally gone up on Steam. This one here is meant to be significantly larger than its predecessor. It's meant to include, as they're saying, all the factions. And it's also the first one from what, again, one of the big selling points of them, it's being set during the Gathering Storm story arc.
Really?
For lack of,
that's cool.
Gathering Storm. So I think we'll see a lot of the characters and a lot of the sort of themes that obviously went through into that probably being played out in this particular one here. And if you get in now, it's 10% off. And if you bought the original game, it's 20% off.
Yep.
Mind you, it doesn't drop till next year, January. But again, kind of thing, buy it now. And when it drops, you've got something to play.
Pretty much.
And me and Doug have already bought it.
Yes, because it was 25% off.
Oh, hang on. So is that so it's like a pre-order?
Yeah, it's like early birds on fucking Kickstarter.
Fair enough. Cool.
Yep.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Nice.
That was cool. That looked like a lot of fun. Yeah, I'm excited for that.
I'm already happy. I'm already excited to get my Hive ships to eat Imperial cruisers.
Nice.
Actually, did you guys see the video that's been doing the rounds of the kayaker from New Zealand that got the octopus thrown in his face by the seal?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just imagine that's Rob playing BFG as like a Ned player. Guy in Space Seal just throwing squid at people.
I don't know. Hey, you just given GW the idea for the next faction, Space Seals.
Oh, bro, I would play the shit out of Space Seals. But seals are sea dogs, right? Like they're just wet puppies. So what would a space seal be?
Space seal.
Like a space wet dog.
I don't know, some kind of furry subcult species which we don't need in our game.
We could just scale them up to walruses in space.
Oh, that'd be cool.
It's like cat people.
Or just kill Rathi at that point.
Aren't walruses in space just ambles?
What was that?
Aren't walruses in space just like ambles? Because they've got the big tusks and shit.
All right, so no walruses in space, no seals in space.
Damn.
That seems fair.
Fair enough.
Not just
consensus. Okay, that's new stuff done.
Mm-hmm.
I think Doug, you had some sort of thing about Night Vault terrain.
Yeah, it was just kind of some cool stuff that came out with the new Night Vault drop. Some of the sort of hex fillers that they've, because you know how not that long ago there were people 3D printing terrain for Shadespire.
Yes, I had heard this.
To kind of make the boards pop a little bit more. Games Workshop have realized there's some money to be made in that particular market, and have released their own set to go with the new Nightvault stuff.
So you get the Warhammer Underworlds Nightvault Arcane Hazards for $55.
Yeah, that's the one. And like, honestly, I was kind of looking at them for Nighthaunt objective markers.
Oh yeah,
yeah, they were quite
like
nice for that, actually.
The Chair of Nagash and the little floaty pyramids and the little bone hole and all that sort of stuff. I figured would make kind of cool objectives.
Yeah, like definitely this chair that looks like if like the gash was some sort of IKEA transformer. This is what he'd turn into.
Yes. Yeah. It's an interesting aesthetic.
And it has a gigantic gem out the back of it.
Yeah, the big diamond out the back. I noticed that on the 360 also, and was very confused.
The more you spin, the more confused you get. That's
yes.
Yep, fair enough.
Yep. Mostly the floaty pyramids, I think, are what I like out of it. I think they're quite cool.
No, that is very nice.
More stuff with negative space. Filthy ghost player that I am. And I really like the Briar Queen, actually, the new Nighthaunt team to go with Nightvault.
Yeah, these are the guys that have got all the like the roses and stuff, right?
Yeah. So I mean the chain the chain rasps that go with her are like, the chain rasps kind of cool. A little bit of character, but the Briar Queen herself I quite like. With the like throwing the rose whip at people.
Sweet.
But yeah. I think that's about it.
Very, very nice. Well, that's new stuff.
Cool.
Yeah, awesome. So what we're going to jump into is the meat and potatoes of tonight's episode, which is back to Badab, or Badab in Black, or what was the other one that got written on these show notes?
I'm blue, badabadee, dabadai.
I think you should badabadai for that.
That seems fair. Badabadabadoo.
So this is something we sort of heralded a little bit in the last two episodes, actually, I think. And anybody that knows our Facebook group, the Badab War Reenactment Society that we have running at the moment, that I think is nearly hit 100.
Maybe. I'll go check.
No, it's 91, which I think
go.
we've got like one, or we might have even lost one since last episode.
No.
I'm not sure. But something that we've always loved is the Badab War campaign setting from Forge World that was done. It wasn't their first campaign setting, but it was one of the first, I think.
Yeah, it was the first one that was multiple books, right?
Oh no, Vrax was before that.
Was it?
Yeah.
No.
Vrax was afterwards.
No, Vrax was after, but I think there was Anphelion Project was before it.
That was only one.
Yeah, wasn't that one book?
Yeah, maybe. Anyway, it's one of the earlier ones, but it is, it was, I think at the time, the most expansive.
Yeah, 100%.
And obviously spawned a whole lot of Space Marine chapters that had a little bit of like some rules here and there, and it was used as a vehicle to update a lot of very campy Space Marine chapters that had been around for a while that needed a bit of an update. We're looking at you, Space Shocks.
No Rainbow Warriors, though.
I was actually just thinking about that Rainbow Warriors never quite made it in.
Still very upset about that.
Obviously, it's also quite a pivotal point in Imperial background as far as the fluff goes and everything else. So one thing that we've been wanting to do for quite a while is, I think the Badab books were probably 4th edition, I think.
The first version of them?
The first version of them, I think, came out in 4th edition. I think they got updated in 5th or 6th edition. And Forge World then... No, they must have been updated in 5th edition, because Forge World then dropped like a downloadable PDF for 6th edition.
Yeah.
For chapter tactics for all of their Space Marine chapters. So everything from Fall of Orpheus and Badab Wars. But since then, there hasn't been too much support. Like currently in 8th edition, in the Space Marine Forge World Index, you get. Well, actually, no. So that's a lie. They are supporting it in that 100% of the special characters from Badab appear in that book.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
I don't think they left anybody out. So you've got
There's that Minotaur with a heavy bolter.
Sergeant Heckfall, or whatever his name is.
But he's not in Badab, so it doesn't. He doesn't
He's not Badab. He was like a campaign character from a Warhammer World thing.
Yeah, event only.
But no, like you do have Wolf Huron as the tyrant of Badab.
Yep.
You have
Coln.
Iberos, Coln, like a million versions of Coln.
I think you've only got the Terminator one now and the Dreddy. So you don't have Sergeant Coln.
No. I think Sergeant Coln is still in that book, actually.
Isn't he in the
I'm pretty sure he's not.
No, I think he's from the Vrax book, isn't he?
Yeah, that Coln is from the Amphilian Project.
The Amphilian Project, okay.
Because it goes Sergeant, Captain, Chapter Master,
Dreadnought,
Dead Guy. Yeah. Retiree.
Yeah.
Actually, that'd be a cool, the Human Evolution t-shirts.
Just doing Coln.
a Coln Evolution t-shirt. Somebody do that and send us one for free.
I actually really love that whole idea behind Coln, though, that you kind of track his career over a few different campaigns.
Yep.
Yeah.
I reckon that's great. And he's one of very few models where that's happened.
No, that's very true. Like, it kind of ties all of those Imperial Armor books sort of together in a way, because he doesn't appear outside of them.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, that was a complete sidetrack. But
keep moving.
Point is, all the characters are in there, including some of the guys that they never had models for, like some chaplains and.
Oh yeah, like almost everybody that isn't an Astral Core or a Minotaur, right? Like, So no, like that's really cool. But one thing that we've sort of been toying with for a while is the idea of maybe updating the rules a little bit.
Yep.
Because one of the things about Badab, and funnily enough, today I was thinking on the way home that, this is possibly also a reason that, I've been able to play 30K for so many years, is Space Marines, when they have differences, like not just tiny differences, but when like there's actual good differences between them, they're still Space Marines, but they operate in different ways. They have, even when they're negatives, not all positives, like it's enjoyable. I quite like that personally. And Badab was sort of the original version of that, where you had all these different Space Marine chapters beating the crap out of each other. And sure, there were, there were some humans hanging out there, like Tyrants Legion, there was Inquisitorial Stormtroopers and everything else, but it was mainly these Space Marine chapters. So one thing that we've wanted to do is update the 6th edition rules into 8th edition, which is, from a rules writing standpoint, is quite easy to do with 8th edition, because there's no such thing as universal special rules anymore.
No.
So you can actually port them one for one in almost every single case, or get pretty close to it. Not to say that's what we've done or what I've done, because at the moment, this is what I have done. It's sort of a very first draft look at them.
Yeah, draft.
And the idea behind it is that for now, we're thinking we want to do chapter traits. Maybe a relic, and maybe 1 or 2 stratagems for each of the chapters listed in the Badab War. At the moment, we don't really have any interest in doing like home-brewed units or anything like that. Like, I think that's stepping a little bit too far. But one of the things we want to do with this is make it sort of like a community consultation once it hits a certain stage. So via that Badab War reenactment group, we're going to set up a subgroup to that, which is like anybody that is super motivated and really interested in doing this. And I'm going to post a link to this episode into there, so people that don't usually listen to us can sort of have a bit of a listen, and I'll post it up as well. We want people that play every single one of the chapters, and I don't mean like all of them, but I mean, we want somebody in there that plays Astral Cores, somebody that plays Lamenters, somebody plays Carcharodon, somebody that plays Minotaurs. And then what I'm thinking that's going to do is, when you do like house rules, generally if you play one or two of the armies, they're going to end up just being the best anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because you know more about them, you have more knowledge to access, so you can kind of objectively make them better because you can back it up with fluff.
Yep.
Right. So what I want to do is I want one person or two people working on each of the chapters and giving us like their best stuff, and then everybody gets together and then like moderates that back till we have something that looks quite good.
Yep, that's fair.
So that's kind of what my thoughts are on the process. And then obviously the same with the relic and the stratagem. If there is a big push out of that Badab War reenactment group for people, for like there to be individual units created or units modified out of the Space Marine Codex, I would be more than happy to pursue that. But at the moment, I'm not thinking about that, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
like I'm not sitting here going, oh, like the Carcharodon Terminator guys that are like the Red Brethren that hang out with Tyberos, right? If I want to use those guys, I'm going to go and get Cataphracti Terminators, and I'm going to give them all chain fists or whatever. Like that's what I'm going to do, and then I'm going to use a chapter trait that I've used for Carcharodons, and I'm going to be happy with that.
Yep.
But it just sort of depends how it is. The other thing we obviously want to do, apart from just the Space Marine chapters, is there is a list that was called the Tyrant's Legion.
Yep.
And when we talk a little bit about the fluff in a minute, they'll sort of come out there, and they're like they're like Imperial Guard PDF units that Luft Huron put under the control of like his Space Marine commanders.
Yep.
Before and during the war. And they were sort of, if you know 30K, very similar to like an Army of Dark compliance list.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something we're sort of thinking about, is taking those Dark compliance rules and porting them into 8th, and maybe doing a bit more there. And actually, I opened the box the other day that was in my garage that I totally thought had like old Star Wars figurines in it. And it had some Cadian guys in it that were just other Cadians that were hanging around. And I was like, you know what? These guys could become like a little Tyrant's Legion sort of group. Yeah. Just to sort of play with some color schemes and whatnot. But yeah, that's kind of what we're thinking at the moment. That's what we want to do with the Badab Wars. So
nice.
We'll chat a little bit about chapter traits now, which is sort of what I've put together. Doug and Rob have only seen these in the last, since we started recording, so I don't know if either of them actually read them yet.
I've glanced over them.
I don't read.
As I was sort of saying to them before we came on air, there's quite a few missing. But the ones that are missing are the ones that in the 6th edition Forge World rules were just use Codex Ultramarines or use just no chapter trait at all. And now that's something that I don't want to port over. Like the only one I'm actually happy, there's only 2 I'm actually happy to port straight over. One's Lamenters, which is just use the Blood Angel Codex. And the other one is Salamanders, who obviously also already have a chapter trait. So that's completely fine.
Wait, which one are we using for Salamanders?
Lamenters or Lamenters?
No. So Salamanders just use Salamanders, and Lamenters just use Blood Angels.
Wait. We're using Salamanders for Salamanders.
Yes.
Yep.
That was a bit weird, but okay.
I understand this is a very difficult concept, but this is what we need to do. Green guys and green guys, right?
Green equals green. Problem solved.
So the ones that we've sort of left out are, as I was saying, like the generic-y kind of ones, but the more you read into them, and this is why I really want people on board that know these chapters and know their fluff, is that like the example I was saying to you two is Star Phantoms, right? So these guys have got white armor. Their chapter insignia is like an hourglass, and the glass sections are like 2 skulls. And their background is, maybe they're Dark Angel successors, maybe they're not. They're big fans of overwhelming firepower to destroy the foe. And they're more interested in the dead than they are in the living. So the highest honor is to die in battle and then be remembered by your battle brothers. Now, when I read that, and that's just like the little fluff excerpt that I was reading on them in like the 30 seconds today, that to me doesn't scream Ultramarines. Like there's other things in there that we could do, and it's also not just, oh, go and use Dark Angels for them. So I'm happy to put a bit of flavor into there with that. The same thing goes with who else are in there? Fire Angels. So no. So Fire Angels are one of the other guys. So these guys are like
other down the bottom. There we go.
Yep, silver armored, and they have like red crosses. And you read about them, and they're they make you think mechanized Black Templar, which is interesting. But once it's so like, I think there's enough flavor to do a few cool chapter traits in there for all these ones as well. So that's why some are missing, but the very divergent ones, like say Carcharodons, I've put something together for them. But please, this is kind of the first draft. We'd love to hear what people have to say, and the best place to go to do that is to jump into the Badab War Reenactment Society, where I'm going to post these once this episode goes up, and we'll have like a good thread there on comments. And then if you're really, really, really super interested, when we put up the group for the actual rules sort of writing side of things, jump into that group as well.
Cool.
All right. So what I'm going to do is just read through what I've got at the moment. If you guys have got any comments or anything like that, let me know as we go through. So we'll start with the Successionists. So Astral Cores, obviously the big boys here. So Astral Core units, -1 on morale rolls. I then had Astral Cores using the Ultramarines chapter traits as well. So that's the one where you choose something different every turn. That kind of makes sense. And then the last one is that they may not voluntarily fall back.
Yeah.
Comments?
Yeah, so the initial problem I have with that isn't the Ultramarines chapter tactic that you can fall back and shoot? It's -1 to hit.
Actually, you know what? I think you're entirely right. One of them is. Yes.
That was why I made it red, because I was like, I'm pretty sure that you've said they can fall back and shoot at -1 to hit, but can't fall back from combat.
Yeah. Okay. Noted. We can take
as an initial thought. Feel free to incorporate that into your further musings. I kind of like the idea, because the Astral Claws are a bit hit and runny, right?
You see, this is one of the things. Their 6th edition rules seem to revolve around bikes.
Yeah.
And give you a very White Scars flavor. But everything I read about the Astral Claws, it doesn't actually back that up. Like, it seems like there was like one thing about Astral Claws and bikes, and then it's kind of like grown and overtaken everything else. Like, to me, what I take from the Astral Claws, and look, you play them, you have an army of them, so I feel like you're a better place to talk about them, Doug. But to me, the Astral Claws were they were grand strategists as far as with Huron was concerned. They were absolute bastards. Like, they were the sort of guys that just wouldn't really die. They wouldn't give up easily.
Yeah.
And they had their command structure was different to initiative was kind of prized, but only if it actually won the day out. If not, you'd get flogged.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which is kind of where the Ultramarine stuff comes from. In that, they can change quite swiftly their tactics on the ground. But the -1 to morale, which is obviously a benefit in 8th edition, tied to the not being able to fall back, is like that bitter fight to the end kind of thing.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I wonder. Part of me wonders if there's scope to say that they can't take like flying infantry or something.
Yeah, so
but
like,
I'm not sure. So like because I don't think I've ever seen an Astral Claws assault marine in their kind of lore and backstory.
okay.
And I'm sure that a quick check of Lexicanum is going to prove me horrendously wrong very, very quickly. But
here are 5 occasions that they had them.
yeah, that's right. Here are the 17 million times they've deployed assault marines. But I would think that because they're so kind of bike slash, because they're also kind of your boarding action kind of guys, right?
Yeah, they do have quite strong, but then again, everybody
is boarding actions.
Everybody in the Badab's sector kind of has that because of what they were doing. Like in the fluff, like they were all about chasing down pirates and securing like areas of space where they weren't particularly fighting over habitable planets or anything like that. It was more about Elder Raiders, renegade space marines, orcs, and those sort of things. So a lot of it is ship to ship. Like the whole conflict kind of explodes out of ship to ship combat. So
yes, yeah. I don't know. There's something. There's some play in Big Guns Never Tire.
Okay,
obviously, but there's always play in Big Guns Never Tire. So something like you giving them like the Catachin doctrine.
Yep. So being able to like re-roll random hits and random shot numbers and whatnot.
Yeah, so like I wonder if actually the Catachin doctrine is actually the best option for them because it's +1 strength to everyone. So they're big and punchy and shit.
Yeah.
+1 leadership while they're within 6 of an officer. So they're better when their bosses are around to knock some heads around. And things with random numbers of shots can re-roll one of the dice to determine how many hits they score or how many shots they take.
Yeah, actually, I actually quite like that. Actually, so one thing else that we should probably preface this with is the way we've tried to approach house rules is look at things that already exist within the game, as opposed to just going completely off the reservation and coming up with all sorts of new stuff.
Wholesale just making up.
Yeah, hence Doug talking about mirroring something that already exists in the game, which is the Catachan doctrine, and we know how it works and we know how it interacts with things.
Yep. And so that would be cool for stuff like Vindicators, obviously, which score a random number of shots. It'd even be good on stuff like
even like flamer teams.
Exactly. Flamers.
Like the boarding and all that.
Frag missiles. Okay. Like I feel like it's got some play.
Okay.
But that's just kind of my initial kind of off the cuff thought. Because I've been thinking about using just the Ultramarines traits to represent them in like matched play stuff.
Yeah.
And I think of the Space Marine options, Ultramarines makes the most sense.
Yeah, 100%. That's why that sort of like made its way as like a trait into this.
Yeah. But I wonder if the Catachin's kind of, if you've got all the trait options available, I wonder if the Catachin one makes the most sense.
Yeah, just copy and paste. Fair enough. Okay. Next up in the Successionists are the Lamenters. Now these guys are a Blood Angel successor chapter that follows almost every tenet that the Blood Angels follow. So just using a Blood Angel Codex is probably the best way to go about it. If anybody doesn't know who these guys are, they've got like yellow armor and black and white checks with a bleeding heart.
Yep. And
they were almost completely wiped out by one of the Hive fleets.
Aren't these the guys? Aren't they one of the? They're one of the Curse founding, aren't they, from memory?
Yeah, I think they might be. A lot of the guys that turned up in Badab were Cursed founding. And I think these guys were. They had like a higher number of them Psychers as well.
Yep.
Which is the same for quite a few of the chapters at Badab. So they get in there. But look, I think Blood Angels Codex, like they do have a Death Company. We know that. Their Death Company are in white armor, which is kind of cool when you see them all painted up. So yeah, they're pretty much the same as Blood Angels. You just obviously just use the Lamenters characters from the Forge World book It's pretty cool. The next on the list are the executioners. So these are the guys that wear the blue metal with bronze detailing, like bronze helmets, some shoulder pad stuffs in bronze and those sort of things. These guys are Imperial Fist successors, but they actually they didn't really get on, to be honest, with the Imperial Fists from what their background sort of says, because they're actually quite a barbaric tribal chapter, which seems to be an influence from their recruiting world. And obviously, you know, executioners, their symbol is a giant double, well, actually it's two single-headed axes, I think, that look like a big battle axe on their shoulder. And what we were sort of what I was thinking for them was characters armed with power or force axes cause mortal wounds on a roll of 6 in combat.
Yeah, but that executioner's blow kind of thing.
Yeah, which is basically a direct port from 6th edition. And kind of fits well into 8th. Doug's writing some notes on there at the moment. D2TFE. You're going to have to tell me what that is.
Yeah. So I was wondering. So once again, so I guess full disclosure, and if you've listened to us before, you'll know this. I really hate like thin air house rules. So ones
I think we all do.
Plucked from wherever. So if you can do it with other stuff that currently exists, then that's kind of what I like to do. So D2TFE is Death to the False Emperor, which is an ability that Chaos Marines have, which is when you're fighting Imperium units, any roll of a 6 to hit inflicts an additional hit.
Okay, like exploding 6s.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that might work.
The problem will be that if you make 6s a mortal wound, that's 2 mortal wounds.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no. That would have to.
Actually, sorry, it's not 6s are a second hit. It's 6s are an extra attack.
Extra attack. So you roll again.
So you're rolling again, basically, and then they don't generate extra hits on their own. So that means that executioner characters can become real powerhouses because if they roll a 6 or better, they're causing a mortal wound and getting an extra hit out of it. And even just your chumps with bare fists and shanking knives are still better in close combat than a red scorpion or a raptor or something.
Yeah, nice.
That's fair.
Okay. And then the other one that we're giving them is executioner units lose 1 less model to morale than normal. Their 6th edition rule, once again, they didn't take negative morale modifiers and things like that.
Yeah.
They were supposed to sort of fight to the bitter end. And in a few of the bits of fluff, they lose like entire forces because they just didn't give up the battlefield.
Yeah.
Which I guess is, the Imperial Fist gene seed coming through, except they don't do it from behind the wall. They do it from in front of the wall. Yeah. Next one, and the last of the Successionist chapters are the Mantis Warriors.
These guys are wearing like a greeny sort of yellow armor and have like it's like almost like an ant or a.
Well, it's a mantis, I think, is like it's big. It's like a big triangle head and mandibles and stuff. Yeah.
It's a praying mantis head.
Yeah, so
and they've got serrated blades built into their forearms, right?
Yeah, I've seen stuff in the past where when they were first talked about in a White Dwarf, 15, 20 years ago, they had like additional back blades that came over, as well as arm blades and stuff. But I haven't really seen much of that carried through.
Yeah, right. Because I remember from a short story I read, admittedly this was quite a while ago, there were a couple of Mantis Warriors on like a redemption quest to make up for the fact that they done goofed during the Badab Wars. And they had basically their combat blades built into their forearms.
Oh, nice. Okay. So
they'd just go shoulder charge people and gut them.
Awesome.
Which was kind of cool. But anyway, sorry, continue. That has nothing to do with their
rule. So these guys in the fluff are quite, psycho heavy. And they used to have a rule that was called Children of Prophecy. And part of the thing is that, supposedly there were visions involved which convinced them that, the tyrant of Badab was on the right track, and was going to prevent certain catastrophes from befalling the Imperium. So that was why they were kind of okay with following him, even though, hindsight 2020 and all that sort of fun stuff, right?
Oh, how wrong you were.
And then other than that, they're very they're rapid assaults, strike from the shadows kind of guys. So what I came up with was, if a librarian is on the table, the Mantis Warrior players can re-roll the CC initiative roll.
Yep.
So that's one there. And then the other one, which is almost a direct port from 6, and I can't, Doug, I do apologize, I couldn't find anything even remotely like this in 8th edition. And that's any Mantis Warrior units that charge from cover, re-roll hit rolls of 1 for that fight phase.
Yeah.
Which is just a little thing. Like, obviously it was a much different thing back in 6th edition doing those sort of things, but I think it's still, it's fun.
It's pretty straightforward, yeah.
Okay, onto the Loyalists. So Red Scorpions, most people will know who these guys are. So Red Scorpions, any tactical squad sergeant can be equipped with a Narthecium.
Yep.
So that just gives them the ability to res somebody or add a wound back on a roll of is it a 5+? I think it's a 5+.
I think it might even be 4 for Marines.
Okay, 4+.
It's 5 for guard, but
yeah. They're -1 to morale rolls. Very similar to actually exactly the same as what we were saying for Astral Claws.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one, which is I put it in there because it's probably not that important, but unable to take camo cloaks on scouts. Badab is a very interesting setting because when they resurrected a whole lot of chapters for it, and as I was saying, some very campy ones as well, a lot of the chapters that they dragged out of even Rogue Trader era and brought forward into Badab, a lot of their original schemes were Space Marine camouflage. Which some of them are terrible, some of them are awesome. And one of the things about Red Scorpions is that they never ever used camouflage. And they looked down on Space Marines that did use camouflage.
Oh yeah.
So one of their rules was always that they couldn't go to ground in cover, and they couldn't use camo cloaks and all this sort of stuff. So the one that sort of holds over and works in 8th is, you just can't take camo cloaks on your scouts.
No, that's fair. It's not like a rule; it's just a restriction when you're building your army, kind of thing.
Yeah, which is fine. Next one, and these are sort of one of my 2 babies, I guess. So I put a bit of thought into this one. Is Carcharodons. So originally, I was sort of imagining playing these guys as just Blood Angels, but not using Blood Angel special units.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're doing this the way we want to do this, it's easy enough to go through and sort of write stuff. So the first one is any Carcharodon infantry may choose to replace their bolt gun with a chainsaw chain axe for no additional cost. This is something they've had forever. So basically they're assault squads with no jump packs.
Yeah, but it just buys into that whole close combat-esque feel of the army. So
yeah
sure.
Yep. You don't have to do the entire squad. It can be half a squad, whatever. That's fine. Carcharodon units gain +1 to wound in any turn that they charge, or whenever they outnumber the enemy in combat. So this one here is purely like a fluff-based one.
Yep.
Which I quite like. I as much as I like the Blood Angel always, +1 and all those sort of things, I think this is a better way. Doug, you've just added in cannot fall back from combat.
I feel like it makes more sense for them than necessarily the Astral Claws.
I do like that. And then the other one we had for Carcharodons, just because of who they possibly might be, and because of Robbie McNiven's books that he's done recently and the sort of things we now know about them, is we've said there's no restriction on relic vehicles and war gear. So we know that like when it comes to the Carcharodons, all their dreadnoughts are contemptors. That they use Horus Heresy technology, like things like storm eagles, and different marks of land raiders and whatnot that you don't generally see in 40k. So we felt this was like I felt this was a good flavor for them. Obviously, there's the ability to abuse that, but I would hope that doesn't happen. You can hope, right?
Yeah, you can just hope.
The next one is the Minotaurs.
Yep.
So once again, this is one of my ones. So Minotaurs always add +1 to run and charge. Distances, Doug, you've just added a note here that says, and must charge if possible.
Potentially.
That's interesting. Is there anything in the game at the moment that has that?
Corn units.
Okay.
I wonder if it makes more sense for the Carcharodons.
Yeah, I'm sort of the interesting thing for Minotaur. So I sort of was like, as I was writing these, I was, just grabbing some fluff blurbs from different places and reading them to just jog memory and reflect on things. And one of the things with the Minotaurs is that originally, as a chapter, they were very close to what Khorne Berserkers would almost be. And then when they reappeared around Badab, they seem to have lost that Berserker style.
Yeah, okay.
They were just like unstoppable juggernaut as opposed to insane, won't listen to commands, just murder everything in front of them kind of thing. So I'm just, but it's on there. We'll have a chat and see what
I wonder if
think.
I'm thinking of the old Minotaurs then.
Yeah. The other one that they had, and I don't know whether this is going to work because this is one of those almost plucked out of thin air rules, is Minotaurs never used to take morale from shooting casualties. So I've brought that forward, which is, they don't count models slain by shooting for the purposes of morale. Now, it shouldn't be too difficult to keep a hold of that as you play the game.
Yeah.
But it might be clunky and it doesn't reflect anything that already sits in 8th edition. So it might be better to just give them like a -1 on the morale roll.
Does it not?
I couldn't see anywhere where people didn't take morale from shooting in 8th edition.
Anyway, keep going because I'll have a look. I think potentially there might be a couple of dudes.
Okay. All right. Well, and the last one is rerolling ones to wound when attacking other Space Marines or Heretic Astartes. And that's what they've always supposed to have. These guys are supposedly the High Lords of Terror's hitmen for taking on Space Marines in a very sort of like Space Wolf-esque way. So that's something that they've always had is like preferred enemy against Space Marines or similar. So that sort of gives this back to them.
That's fair.
Then, as we were saying before, we miss out on Exorcists, Firehawks, Howling Griffins, Star Phantoms, Marines Errant. Salamanders, just use Salamanders.
Shock horror.
Sons of Medusa, which would have been a fairly good just, hey, use Iron Hands. Part of me wants to do something different. So I've sort of started, if you don't use Iron Hands tactics, I think all their characters can repair vehicles. And then I was thinking something else that buffs vehicles and dreadnoughts would work quite well for Sons of Medusa.
Yeah.
But giving them something slightly different to Iron Hands. Because one thing, and I didn't know that much about these guys till I read a little bit of fluff, is that these are actually the guys that started a civil war inside of the chapter.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then lost that civil war and then kind of split off.
Yeah.
So I think you would actually have quite a variation between them and the normal Iron Hands. Because when you read about like the philosophical differences in them and how they revere machines and how they deal with like the Mechanicus and everything else, they're quite different. So I could imagine there would be some differences there that you could pull out in game as like chapter tactics.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool. And then the last guys that I actually did come up with chapter tactics for are Raptors. So these are the guys that wear sort of like the camo green. They're Raven Guard successor chapters. So I've given them just straight up the -1 to hit Raven Guard infantry at over 12 inches. And then the other thing that these guys are supposed to be superb snipers. So we've given them Raptors infantry armed with bolt weapons that don't move and is deployed into cover. So this is sort of like a first turn thing. Can add 6 inches to the range of the weapon. So a bolt pistol becomes 18 inches, a bolt gun becomes 30 inches. They become heavy 1, and they cause a mortal wound on a wound roll of a 6. They also don't have any penalties to target characters. But the moment the unit moves, they lose the ability. So they're kind of like snipers set up in ambush to some extent. And then the other one that I wanted to add in, although I have a feeling that this is possibly the most abusive rule that I've come up with, is tactical Marines can take camo cloaks.
Oh no, one up armor save Marines are fine.
So yeah, that's possibly a little bit ridiculous, giving tactical Marines just a 2-up save running around, unless it's pointed at some ridiculous amount. Yeah. So anyway, that's where we are at the moment for chapter traits and tactics. If you've got any ideas, as I said, the Badab War Reenactment Society group, and I'll share that around once this goes up on the podcast page. Jump in there, let us know what's going on. But you look totally okay to send us Facebook messages, emails, all that sort of stuff on what your ideas are, and then jump in and get involved. This is totally a first take. Nothing set in stone. I believe all three of us are very much open to all of these changing and having all sorts of ideas thrown at us.
Well, so, it's a bit of a community-driven thing, so if we're not taking...
Well, that's exactly what we want.
Community feedback.
Yeah. And look, I think the end game with this is obviously to fill a gap that Forge World doesn't seem interested in filling at the moment.
Yep.
And then the other thing is we've always had ideas for at least the last 18 months of running a purely online worldwide campaign that's sort of like a refighting of Badab, using a few different systems that we've used for 30k things in the past. So we've run or assisted in running the 30k global campaigns with other podcasts, and that's worked quite well in the past. So adopting something similar to play Badab in 8th edition could be a lot of fun.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Cool.
Anything else you guys want to add into that? I'm sort of thinking maybe from next episode on, we can do 1 or 2 chapters and like do like a bit of a fluff dive into them.
Yeah, cool. Sounds good.
Or something like that going on. So yeah, look forward to a sort of a fairly regular Badab section. And as we sort of update rules and whatever, we'll bring them to the table and let people, tell people what they are and then get some feedback on them as well, which would be really cool. Okay, anything else from you guys?
No, I've typed all of my thoughts in as we've gone.
Awesome.
So I had the idea of for the Sons of Medusa, the Iron Hands tactics, but throw them on dreadnoughts and vehicles instead of infantry, bikes, and dreadnoughts.
Okay, yeah, that could be fun.
Just to give them a bit of a difference and that shift of focus towards vehicles.
Yep, I like it.
And the Raptors, I was thinking, instead of all of the long-winded snipery bullshit you were talking about, just say any infantry model can replace their bolt gun with a stalker bolt gun. Which is heavy 1, range 30.
They're the Deathwatch ones, aren't they?
Correct.
Yes. That's actually, yep, perfect. That actually covers that off.
Sounds pretty good.
Yeah, nice. Okay.
Cool.
Easy. Love it. Well, as I said, guys, these will be posted into on our Facebook page and the Badab War Reenactment Society page for people to look at, download, add comments to. And we hope everybody's as excited as we are. Too cool. So what we're going to do now, and this is sort of, I guess, sort of the end part of the show, is we've had a little bit of an idea as something to do as a bit of fun on the occasional podcast episode when we're not doing listener questions. And we've very catchily titled this The Loaded Dice Narrative Theory Extreme Violence Mundane Showdown. And the idea behind this is before the show, all three of us have chosen a character from 40k or 30k. In this case, I think we've all chosen 40k characters. Yeah.
Yeah, we have.
And the idea is, you pick your avatar character, and then we're given on a piece of paper. And my lovely wife, I hassled her before the podcast started and got her to write something down. And I sort of explained to her that what she needed to write was a mundane, everyday task. So it could be going shopping, posting a letter, getting a haircut, anything that normal people do in their everyday lives, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then what we have to do is apply our characters to this task and decide who would be the best at it and who would be the worst at it. So that's pretty much the idea of the narrative theory extreme violence mundane showdown. So I'm going to open the piece of paper, and you can probably hear me uncrinkling it here.
Jesus.
Sure can.
Fuck.
Everybody's now deaf.
Fucking hell.
Normally my job, right?
Okay, so as I said, my lovely wife has done this, and I think next time we do it, we'll just get, maybe Rob, maybe Elise can provide one, and Jeanette can provide one.
Yeah, that's easy.
And then eventually we'll start asking listeners. So the one we've come up with.
Should we talk about who we've got first?
Okay. Yeah. Okay, that's a good idea, actually.
And then think about the task.
We'll talk about it. So, Rob, do you want to present your hero, your avatar for this incredible showdown?
My spirit animal? Yes. In honor of October and leading into that, I'm going with Gazgal Mad Urug Thraka, the head honcho soccer hooligan and all-around good orc. I will not be yelling and putting on a British accent for this one because I don't want to drive anyone else away since we're already down to less than a hand's worth of listeners at this point. So, yeah, I'll be going with my spirit animal.
Hot.
Nice.
Doug, who have you got in your corner?
I thought I would play it safe and pick someone who is an excellent administrator, someone with a proven track record of doing mundane shit day in, day out for thousands of years. So I have gone with Manius. I wish Dad was still dead. Calgar.
Actually, yeah, I feel like Doug's possibly found the cheat codes to this, and just everything's going to be a fucking ultramarine, right?
That's right. Next one will be Cato Sicarius. Actually, no. What's the first company captain's name? The guy who's completely fucking useless.
Agamon.
Yeah.
No. Hang on. Isn't Agamon dead? Wasn't he the guy that died in the bowl cap or something?
Maybe. No. Hang on. Anyway, we're getting distracted. You go first. Who's your guy?
I've chosen, if Rob's spirit animal is Gazgal Madok Thraka, then my spirit animal's possibly Cherrible from Eisenhorn. So friendly neighborhood demon host, currently riding the body of a dead Arbite.
Nice.
Yeah, so that gives you an idea of who we're playing with today. So remember, mundane task, characters from 30k or 40k, who's the best and who's the worst at doing the mundane task. Okay, so once again, I'm going to open the piece of paper.
Can you just leave it open from now fucking on? Jesus.
The task we have in front of us for the very first Loaded Dice Narrative Theory Extreme Violence Mundane Showdown is locking the front door every morning when you leave the house.
Oh, fuck.
Ah, fuck.
So what we're going to do...
I feel like we're all bad at this.
I was going to say, no, Cherrible gets a free pass on this because he just goes out of phase and just goes through the door.
He either goes through the door or he explodes the house. And I'm not like a bit of a coin flip on which one.
Well, you see, what I think we need to do is possibly, do we want to talk through each character as a group, or do we want the characters Or do you want each of us to make an argument for each of our characters and why they would be the best at it?
Oh, Gazgol is not the best at this. Let's be honest, have you ever seen like a bunch of college frat boys trying to get into a house because then there's a keg of beer in there? That's what Gazgol's like. He doesn't even use it. He just goes straight through it.
Do orcs actually believe in doors?
All their trucks, some of the trucks do. Some of the tanks still have doors on them.
So what we're saying is that Gazgol probably doesn't lock doors.
No. Because he's the biggest orc. Like, he doesn't need to lock his shit because everyone knows it's his. And, like, anyone touches it ends up fucking in the squig pen or in, like, a fucking doom diver.
Well, then that actually kind of makes him quite good at doing this because he doesn't even have to lock the door and he gets all the security benefits of locking a door.
Yeah, it's like the local drug dealer's car on the street. No one goes near it.
Nobody steals that one, right?
Well, to embrace the inner ultramarine, technically that makes him terrible at locking the door because he never locks the door because he never feels like he has to lock the door.
Oh, right. So you're playing the ultramarine technically correct is the best type of correct?
Yeah. The practical and theoretical, right? Like, it's how we roll.
But then hang on. The theoretical would be that technically he never locks the door, so he's bad at it. But the practical would be is he never actually has to lock the door.
Well, the practical is that the door remains unlocked forever.
No.
The
practical for Magnus Calgar is that he then needs to decide what is the best door to lock. So he needs to form a subcommittee of, all the captains of the Ultramarines and sit around and try every single lock. And because they're all a bunch of public servants, they never get anywhere and they never make a decision.
Nah, mate, it's all in the book.
You got to check the Codex Astartes to see if it's written in there somewhere.
See which course of action is supported.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's in a room with a lock on the door. And I bet you Manius locks it every time.
So, Rob, I just want to put this to you about Gazgol and his door, right? And the idea that if, we've come to the decision that Gazgol would not lock his door, right? Because he's like, I'm the biggest orc. Fuck you, I'm not locking my door. What happens if instead of them being really innocent, helpful girl guides with cookies, it turns out that the girl guide is none other than Sebastian Yarrick?
Then he is yelling wire at the top of his lungs, strapping on his power claw, which I don't think he can get out of that armor anymore, and charging out the door. The door is simply a barrier.
Isn't he doing that for girl guides anyway?
So I don't know. I feel like Gazgol might actually be like a Peppermint Thins kind of guy.
Oh, fuck.
He's definitely not a short kind of guy. All right.
Gazgol is the worst at locking the door because he will never lock it because that's just a barrier to him crumping something.
Okay. Whereas,
mind you, have you ever seen an orc try to pull out their keys and use them while they're in mega armor? Like, how the fuck is he meant to do that?
Well, he's got one hand just holding a shooter. He's fine.
No, but it's inside fucking armor.
That's fine.
But doesn't Gazgol also strike you as the sort of person that's like, so famously Elvis Presley, right? And stick with me because I feel like there's a lot of parallels between Gazgol and Elvis, right?
Yep.
They probably both really like chili fries, kind of large.
And they both dive both
aliens.
In the toilet.
Yeah. So famously Elvis Presley got really drunk one morning, or was still drunk from the night before, went outside to his car, which was a De Tomaso Pantera, which is an awesome car. If you don't know what it looks like, look it up. It's fucking awesome. And couldn't work out how to get the keys in the ignition, or it wouldn't start, or something like that. Pulled out a gun and started shooting the car in an attempt to get it to start. Yeah. Police were called.
It was Elvis.
He explained it was Elvis. I don't think anything happened. It was Elvis.
They took some photos. I was going to say, I was going to use that analogy of watching that machine gun cut down a tree. Like Gazgol walks up to the door, can't get his keys out, so just opens up with the shooter at the lock.
Yeah, I feel like Gazgol is kind of like he's a hammer and everything else is a nail, right?
Oh, everything else is a peanut.
So the idea of locking the door. Okay, so Gazgol's never going to lock the door.
No, fuck no, he's not locking the door.
All right, so and Manius is only going to lock the door if Dad wrote in the book that he's got to lock the door.
Well, see, so my problem with Manius Calgar, right, is how the hell does he lock the door with the gauntlets of Ultramar on?
But hang on, he doesn't have to wear the gauntlets of Ultramar, does he?
I guess not. That's true.
Like there is that fantastic art sketch of him sitting on what looks to be a Space Marine toilet.
Oh, is that the one they turned into a miniature?
Yeah.
Yes.
That
Or
was
he
the
just sort of sitting
original
around.
on throne. Yes.
Yeah.
And look, sorry, can I just also point out that the Ultramarines as a chapter have a very bad track record with locking the fucking door. They let the word bearers in, right? They let the fucking word bearers in. And then there was a hive fleet.
Well, with the word bros, I'll at least give them a caveat. They invite them in. It's like when you invite a vampire.
I was going to say, okay, technically, what was the task?
Locking the front door every morning when you leave the house.
Okay, they hadn't left the house when the word bearers showed up. They were still in Ultramar.
Yep.
And they hadn't left the house when the Tyranids showed up. They were still in Ultramar.
Typical.
Do you know the last time Marnius Calgar left the house? Never.
When he had to go.
By default, he is the best at locking the door when he leaves the house because he never leaves the house.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna make an argument for my avatar, Cherubal Demon Host.
Also, he still has the gauntlets on the throne.
Oh, does he?
Yeah.
I thought they were hanging up. What's hanging up behind him?
Nah, his helmet and his cloak and his bolter.
Okay,
bolter.
Right. Okay.
He's like that boxer who's been punched too many times and then now just walks around permanently with his boxing gloves on but can't do anything.
No. That's not him. It's totally the drunk guy from the baseball match with the giant foam finger.
Oh, fuck. It's been 10 cents beer night again.
Yeah, he's wearing like a nacho hat.
Oh, fuck.
Yep.
I don't think Marnius Calgar's fun enough to wear a nacho hat, though.
No.
Only if it's in the Codex Astartes, he can wear it.
He'd go to a football match and buy like a bottle of water.
Oh, fuck.
I feel like that's what he would do. So, okay, I'm going to make an argument for Cherubal. And that is that he's actually probably the worst at locking the door when he leaves the house in the morning. So he's a bound demon host, right? So he could be really good at it as long as Eisenhorn tells him to lock the door every morning, right? But even if Eisenhorn tells him, if he has the ability not to do what Eisenhorn says, like, and resist him, he's not going to do it.
Yep.
Right? So the only way he's going to lock the door is if Eisenhorn tells him not to lock the door and he somehow gets around it.
So he's like that little kid who, like, don't put the fork in the toaster and they go and do it anyway.
Yeah, that's kind of the way that it goes, right? Like, he's a bound demon. You know, he's a bit petty. There's a bit of pettiness there. The other thing that I sort of imagine is that when they bind him, he's actually covered in chains and locks, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it stands to reason, as far as I can understand it, that if he can lock and unlock the house door, why can't he just unlock and lock the chains that are around him? And then he's not a bound demon anymore. And he hasn't done that. So I feel like obviously somewhere in his childhood, there is a deep-seated fear of locks.
Yeah, so we're making the argument that Cherubale is physically incapable of operating any lock device.
Yeah, that's the only thing that I can possibly gather from him as a character.
Yep, that's legit. That feels like it's consistent with his story arc.
Yeah.
But mind you, he's the only one so far who's actually using the lock in any form.
Well, okay, look, I also just want to put this out here if we're going to take the flip side to Cherubal, and I'm not quite sure which way I'm going to go on this yet, and that is that out of the three of these characters, he's the only person to single-handedly demolish a Titan. So I feel like the idea of locking a door is probably something within his grasp.
I don't know. Bringing down a Titan just requires, brute force and, just area of effect. But, locking a door is fine motor skills. And I haven't heard he's got fine motor skills yet.
I would like to see him try and close it, like lock a door the same way he'd blow up a Titan.
or considering he's a bound demon, does he have to rely on his host's ability to unlock a door and lock a door?
Oh, so maybe Fistjig never opened a door. Because he's just kicking him down all the time.
That's what I was going to say. Is he's an Arbite. So he was constantly just in like a bear cat with a battering ram on the front of it, right? Okay, so we have to come to a decision, right? And it's got to be like as close to a consensus as the three of us can manage, which means we're fucked.
Yeah, that's right. We'll be here for hours.
So, in the last place, who are we saying after all of that?
Who's the worst at unlocking a door?
I feel like Gazgul is at least familiar with the concept of a lock.
Okay.
Yeah, mind you, he'll just get his grots to open it if he needs to.
Yeah, but like when he was a boy, right, an up and coming boy, he would have had to have locked his shit up. Otherwise, people would have nicked it.
Yeah, again, the boys above him would nick it.
Yeah, and now there's just no boy above him. Maybe this has just been one, like Guzgul's story is just the quest to be free of locks.
That's it. And now he's at the top of the chamber. He has no need for them.
That's right.
So no, he's definitely not the worst.
I feel like Cherubale's bottom of the pile.
Yeah. Look, as much as I love the little guy, I think you're right. I feel like he would do everything in his power not to follow direction.
Yeah, and I mean he's a demon, right? So like, while he's in the warp, does he even have a concept of the front door or work or the morning?
Well, is his door a portal into the material realm? And if he closes and locks it, he's kind of fucked himself.
So he just never locks anything because
So maybe he's averse to locking doors because of that connection.
So what? He's just got like an extension cord running from his home out to his workplace so that he doesn't run out of juice while he's at work.
Pretty much.
Yeah, and that's now progressed to like the 40k equivalent of a toddler with a harness, and that's what Eisenhorn basically has.
Come along, child.
Okay, so Cheruble's going to go on the bottom of the pile. Okay,
yep.
Perfect.
Yep. So it's down between Gazzy.
So that's between Gazgal and Marnius.
Sorry.
So
I'm going to say, you know what? Does a drop pod restraint harness count as a lock when you got to put it in place?
well, no. You see, my thing for Marnius is that technically correct is actually correct. And Marnius's argument is that Gazgal doesn't actually ever lock the door because he doesn't need to lock the door.
Yep.
And the task is locking the door.
And let's be honest, if Daddy had written it in the Codex of Studies, Marnius would make sure that the door is locked every morning. And he would double check just to make sure that door is locked.
Yeah.
I feel like that's doodled in a margin somewhere, right? Just like somewhere in the armory. It's just like, lock your shit up.
Yeah.
And like now it's like involves 20 candles and an incense kind of brazier and 3 or 4 chaplains constantly singing just to lock the door. So like he locks the door in style. He makes sure that fucker's locked.
And to the great hymn of the Emperor, lock your shit up, boy.
All right, so I think we have a winner for the first ever Loaded Dice Narrative Theory Extreme Violence Mundane Showdown. Marnius, I wish my dad was still dead. Calgar.
Cool. Yeah. So Ultramarines overpowered once again.
Yeah, so but it doesn't involve Gilliman and a Razorback. And actually, here's a follow-up question to this one for Marnius, our winner on tonight's game show. Does Dad still agree with locking the door, considering how much of the Codex he's kind of rebutted since he came back from the dead?
Well, so what you'll find is that a lot of people seem to have jumped onto this Codex 2.0 bandwagon. But true aficionados of the teachings of Robert Gulliman stick with Codex 1.0. You probably don't hear about it much anymore. It's pretty underground at this stage. But like Marnius has grown out his lumberjack beard and he gets around in flannel.
And he has glasses with no lenses.
Yeah, with no lenses in them. Only drinks at like free trade coffee shops.
Oh, fuck.
What would Ultramarines kombucha taste like?
Oh,
terrible, I am sure.
I was going to say.
Actually, sorry, bland and efficient. That's what it would taste like.
I was going to say, isn't that Macho Green T-shirt now?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, fuck it. All right, moving on.
So, guys, I hope you've enjoyed that silly little segment as much as we enjoyed just running through it. So we don't know what next time will be, but we'll have different characters between the rest of us. And we'll hopefully be playing some more Loaded Dice Narrative Theory Extreme Violence Mundane Showdown. Cool. So I think the last thing we wanted to have a bit of a chat about was maybe upcoming events. No, Doug's just noted in there that we're going to be doing that next time because at the moment we don't have anything coming up. It's quite unusual for us, actually. One thing I did want to actually share, because I have been talking to Mr. Metal himself, Henry Steele, from Cult of Paint. is that when Cult of Paint is out in Australia in November, and they're doing a workshop in Melbourne and a workshop in Canberra, apparently there's still some tickets available for some of the classes that are going on. There's a master class, as well as I think like an infantry and tank painting course with Cult of Paint. So if you're interested in attending that, you can get tickets from House of War's website, or I think you can do it through the Cult of Paint website or their Facebook page. The other thing is, hopefully, once Henry, Andy, and the other guys get back from Heresy Camp over in the US, where they are at the moment, we might actually be able to get them on for a bit of an interview, see what they've been up to, and let them speak some of their courses that they're running worldwide at the moment.
Sounds good.
That should be a whole lot of fun.
Cool.
So, guys, hopefully you've enjoyed episode 60, Badab in Black, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time.
Stay safe,
guys.